Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal. See playlist for other chapters and novels. Join now our Telegram channel now and enjoy exclusive early access. t.me/blood_immortal_official. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 801, Total Ascension. Chapter 801, Total Ascension. Deep in the mountains and ancient ruins, far in the wilderness and desolate lands, there existed countless powerful beings who were once matchless in their own generations and overlords in one way or another. However, when they finally reached the greater celestial full cultivation state, their hearts were mowed down into despair in the face of the endless path of merely grinding for energy grid line chains. What was the use of cultivating so many energy grid line chains? At the end of the day, other than raising their strength further, there was no purpose to be served. There had been countless of powerful beings in the past who had chosen to just live out the rest of their lives till death just because they could never ever step beyond that greater celestial full cultivation state. For any powerful being, this was an intolerable blow. However, there were countless of powerful beings who were indignant as well. They were bent on going against the heavens to forcefully try to break through the greater celestial full cultivation state and enter that realm of eternity. However, for the past 10,000 years ever since the Xuanwang world was split into two, there had never been another powerful being who could break through these shackles any longer. Day and night, these countless powerful beings would gaze up into the skies with a tormented heart. Initially, they thought that seeking the path of martial arts would eventually lead them into the realm of eternity. But it was only to find out at the end of the day that it was all nothing but a dream. For the sake of martial arts, they had forsaken everything. And by the looks of it now, none of it was worth it. But yet, on this fateful day, something changed. From all the secret grounds across the Xuanwang world, streaks of light beams shot up straight into the heavens. A series of ferocious auras turned into dragons that roared up against the heavens for a long, long time. 100 years. It's been 100 years. To think that I could finally break through now. At this very moment, countless powerful beings suddenly realized that there was no longer anything in their path forward. At this moment, they felt free as though they could dissipate from the spot at any moment. Lin Fan had cultivated the Xuanwang world and opened up the barriers of the heavens and earth. The light screen that had split the Xuanwang world into two evaporated. That initially thin spirit chi of the world started getting denser. It was so dense that it could almost materialize into a physical state right now. By the looks of it, there seems to have been quite a number of powerful beings from the Xuanwang world who have broken through the barrier. Every single thing that happened within the Xuanwang world was under the Lin Fan's control. Countless powerful beings broke through that once existent barrier of the Xuanwang world and entered a higher state. 1 aura, 2 auras, 3 auras, 3,600 auras. ... With a single thought, Lin Fan could sense all the auras that were surging forth from all around the Xuanwang world instantly. Mie Changqi. At this moment, Lin Fan took notice of Mie Changqi's status. On the nameless peak, Mie Changqi's aura was skyrocketing as the aura of life and death coiled through his body. The gates of the heaven and earth were opened wide as though they were connected to a mysterious place. This boundless life and death aura gushed down from those gates of the unbathed Mie Changqi in it. The gates of life and death. Unkillable, indestructible, breakthrough. With Mie Changqi as the center of it all, an aura rose up and turned into a typhoon. This typhoon ripped through the entire world, shrouding the entire nameless peak within it. Looking at the current status of Mie Changqi, Lin Fan did feel a little astonished. Utmost celestial lower level cultivation state. Utmost celestial middle level cultivation state. ... Utmost celestial full cultivation state. Xing. This aura could not rest for a long time. It only came to a standstill after he reached utmost celestial full cultivation state. Indeed, he's not someone that yours truly had trained up for nothing. He has prepared well with his foundation for him to skyrocket to the utmost celestial full cultivation state with a single shot. From here on forth, he will definitely be a part of the main force. Lin Fan had not expected that Mie Changqi would be able to skip through several stages of the cultivation state at one go. He was truly a matchless talent. Initially, Mie Changqi was the only one in the entire Xuanwang world who had skipped through so many stages. But unexpectedly, Yao Wuxi in the Dead Demon City broke through as well. While that aura of his was nowhere as formidable as Mie Changqi, the aura of the special body type was something that amazed Lin Fan. A series of venomous demon gods surrounded Yao Wuxi's body. Each of them howled out furiously and surged with immense powers. Instantly, they turned into venomous talismans that floated around the head of Yao Wuxi before entering his inner world. Herg! Yao Wuxi roared out with a heaven-piercing disposition. The skies were shrouded with mist before he sucked it all within his body. Utmost celestial upper-level cultivation state. Pretty strong. When Lin Fan caught sight of this, he could not help but feel a tinge of envy. Some people were just born extraordinary. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. A single year of cultivation could match up to 10, perhaps even 100 years of cultivation for others. There were countless aged and experienced powerful beings in the Xuanwang world who had remained at greater celestial full cultivation state for a long time. However, even with their accumulated foundations, they could only skip to utmost celestial middle-level cultivation state at best. If they found out about Mie Changqi and Yao Wuxi, they would probably puke out blood and die in rage. This time around, after the barrier of the Xuanwang world and ancient saint world was broken through, and there were countless powerful beings who entered an even higher state. But in Lin Fan's opinion, this was only just a nice front to look at. Back when the Xuanwang world was split into two, the spirit chi had become extremely weak. For all of these powerful beings who could cultivate till a greater celestial full cultivation state, they could already be considered as talents amongst talents. But, it was exactly because of this that even after attaining a greater celestial full cultivation state, they stayed stuck here for the past 100 years. With that, their innate potentials had long been wasted. Seems like the newer generation is still where the hope lies. All these elders of the older generation should serve as a good guide for those of the younger generations. Lin Fan naturally had a plan of his own. Given the current situation, he had to hurry and get his hands on some Shenyang pills so that he could use 100 years in a single thought. By then, with all of these geniuses coming forth, the ancient race would be FCKED over back and forth. And just at this moment, the entire Xuanwang world shook. Countless powerful beings who had broken through suddenly felt that there was a source of energy that was trying to reach out to them from the unknowns. It was trying to lead them to ascend to a higher platform. Hue, the ancient saint world has sensed it and is trying to pull these people over. That's a fool's dream. Lin Fan slapped out with his palm. Instantly, a boundless amount of power shot right into the void. That tremendous power of beckoning that was calling out to everyone evaporated instantly. As for the powerful beings of the Xuanwang world, they were bewildered. They did not know what had just happened. They could sense from the unknowns that if they were to follow this power of beckoning, they could enter an even greater world. But, the power of beckoning disappeared all of a sudden as though it had never existed. But for the masses, this didn't matter anymore. The fact that they had entered a higher cultivation state had already allowed these old-time powerful beings to find a new lease of life in those sunken hearts of theirs. As for where that power of beckoning was trying to lead them to, it didn't bother them any longer. Seems like it's about time to head to the ancient saint world now. Given the current situation, with my physical body state so damn bloody overpowered, I can just go face everything head-on. Time to scam some Shenyang pills and find some powerful beings to purify and reform so that they can cultivate some Shenyang pills for me. The requirement of 10 trillion Shenyang pills is a little scary. Seeing his strength, Lin Fan was filled with confidence once again. His physical body state was now a divine celestial level 10, eternal God state body. Only, he did not know if it would hurt if he were whacked by an utmost being. If he had the chance, he would definitely give it a good try. When Lin Fan appeared in the ancient saint world once more, this time around, following him was the Xuanwang world which was revolving around in his inner world. The current Lin Fan was the controller of the Xuanwang world. Every single change would happen through a single thought of his. The feeling of having complete control over countless lives was something too awesome for Lin Fan. In the past, he might not have even dared to dream of something as such. Chapter 802. Strike me down if you can. Chapter 802. Strike me down if you can. Lin Fan looked at the boundless terrain of the ancient saint world and felt a limitless battle intent rising in his heart. His personal strength had improved tremendously. Now that his physical body state was at divine celestial level 10 cultivation state, it might very well be at the pinnacle of his limits. But, the path of improvement was one that was never ending. Since the system did not give off any notifications, there was a huge possibility that further improvement might be possible. Right now, Lin Fan was feeling a little smug. With one hand on his waist and another pointing up at the heavens, he hollered, "Heavens will, you little dipshit. This time around, yours truly has brought a ton of helpers back with me. I'll see how you wish to go against yours truly now." Lin Fan knew that the heavens will was still in deep slumber. While it could awaken from time to time, the amount of power that it could send forth was limited still. And it was precisely because of this that Lin Fan did not fear the heavens will. As to what would happen after it was to awaken, he would leave it till then to decide. Right now, there were only two thoughts on Lin Fan's mind. The first was to find any lone utmost being before killing them and snatching their treasures to strengthen his own body. At the same time, that ancient saint sacrificial altar hadn't had many changes up until now. If he had the chance, he would give it a good look. At this moment, Lin Fan wanted to make a trip over to the guarded ground to drag Cruel out, so that they could form a team with the Ancient One and start hunting down utmost beings. Boom, but all of a sudden, something started happening between the world. What in the bloody world is happening right now? Is it going to rain? Within the void, lightning flashed out while gray clouds gathered. There was a boundless might that was forming up in the void. Boom, 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 wow, the sound of this thunder is a little scary, A thought flashed through Lin Fan's mind as he sensed that something was up with this situation right now. The thunderbolts were as thick as dragons. Not only that, they carried a devastating power with them. It was as though a single thunderbolt could strike Lin Fan to death instantly. "Human, hand over the ancient saint sacrificial altar and the eternal god seat." At this moment, a booming voice rang through the void. It was bright and solid, rattling Lin Fan so badly that his little heart was palpitating intensely. Heavens will. The moment he heard the voice, Lin Fan did not have to guess to know who the fellow was. Within the ancient saint world, the heavens will was the ruler. However, given the current situation, Lin Fan wasn't fazed by this heavens will. It was not as though the heavens will had awakened entirely. Lin Fan opened up his arms spread eagle, indicating that the heavens will could come at him as it wanted. N-O-V-E-L-P-in.C-Om. Heavens will, don't you bloody go overboard now. Yours truly has just returned, and you're already here causing me troubles. Do you have some sort of a feud with me? Lin Fan scolded out. While he was a little nervous in his heart, he wasn't completely afraid. Based on the way things would go, if the heavens will of the ancient saint world were truly so damn strong right now, it would definitely not bother to continue nagging all the way till now. Instead, it would probably choose to fight him straight up and snatch away the items on its own. It could practically squeeze Lin Fan in its palms and kill him with a slight bit of effort. Hand over the ancient saint's sacrificial altar and the eternal god seat. This bright voice rumbled over once more like raging waves. Heavens will, don't you go overboard now. Yours truly is not going to hand it over. Come and kill yours truly if you've got the guts. If yours truly would even twitch a single eyelid. Boom. Before Lin Fan had even finished his words, a thunderbolt struck down from above the firmaments. This thunderbolt seemed as though it could even rip the entire world apart. It tore a large section apart in the void. Bam! Holy FCK! This heaven's will is simply way too audacious. Before Lin Fan could even complete his sentence, it sent a thunderbolt down right away. It was giving yours truly no respect at all. Lin Fan's body jerked momentarily. Within the thunderbolt, there was an endless amount of devastating power as it struck down on Lin Fan's body. Crack! Boom! Lin Fan's body immediately met with a series of electrical currents that cruised through him. Holy FCK! This is quite something. A deep crack appeared as the hairs on Lin Fan's body stood upright while he was charred black. The powers in his body rumbled momentarily before returning to normal. Ding! Eternal God body experience points plus 50,000. Just at this moment, Lin Fan's face froze up as though he had just discovered a new world. Bloody hell, this bloody thing is giving me so many experience points. Lin Fan hadn't expected that a single thunderbolt by the heavens would bring forth these many experience points for his physical body. This was something startling indeed. Even if it were the Ancient One who was whacking him, he was no longer gaining any more experience points from that. But this thunderbolt gave him 50,000 points straight away. This was way too astonishing. At this moment, Lin Fan gave out a loud roar as he shrugged his body. Life force cruised through his entire body, and the charred black skin of his healed back to normal immediately, filled with a boundless amount of life force. But just at this moment, Lin Fan suddenly recalled something important. Initially, Lin Fan had thought that this was practically more or less the limit for his physical body after reaching Divine Celestial Level 10. After all, even an utmost being could no longer give him any experience points. He was still wondering who else he could look for to train up his physical body state from now on. But at this moment, the thunderbolt of the heavens will was giving him quite some experience points. Perhaps this could be a form of training method as well. How could you? At this moment, the heavens will realize that the human was fine, without any damage at all. It couldn't help but let out a shocked expression, evidently unable to believe that this could be happening. Not good. I must definitely not allow the heavens will to discover that its thunderbolts have no effect on me. Otherwise, it wouldn't send them forth anymore. Lin Fan was someone who would never ever give up on any opportunity to increase his strength. As for this heavens will, since it could increase his strength right now, Lin Fan would definitely not let it go. That's smarts. Right now, Lin Fan's acting skills could be comparable to those Oscars winners. This expression of him acting dead right now was intricate down to the very last wrinkle on his face. Instantly, Lin Fan gave a petrified look as he clutched at his chest as though he had just been dealt a heavy blow. His body started quivering, and his eyes lost their luster. The other free hand of his clutched at the heavens as though he was about to reach for something. That stings. It hurts. Thud. Lin Fan collapsed onto the ground. He struggled to rise up, but just as he managed to barely stand up, he collapsed back down once more as though he was severely injured. In the opinion of the heavens will, the state that Lin Fan was in right now was a half-dead state. Within the void, the heavens will nodded its head in satisfaction as it observed the current situation right now. That should be the way things should be. How could he possibly be fine? According to the heavens will, there was no way the other party could possibly be alright after its thunderbolt. The situation right now was exactly what the heavens will wanted to see. However, there was something off about this. According to the heavens will, that thunderbolt should have been enough to kill the other party. But to think that the human was not dead at all. This was something that it hadn't expected. Human, hand over the ancient saint's sacrificial altar. Hand over the eternal God seat. The voice of the heavens will boomed out once more. No, strike me down if you've got the guts. Lin Fan yelped out while rolling left and right on the ground and wailing non-stop. However, he took notice to check his surroundings out from time to time as well. After all, this was something that would cause him to lose his image. Chapter 803. Are you fucking kidding me? Chapter 803. Are you fucking kidding me? Courting death. The heavens will blared out. He hadn't expected that this human would dare to act so brazenly. That's fine as well. Your heavens will shall kill you right now, and dig that ancient saint's sacrificial altar and eternal God seat out of you. Kill me. Dream on. Lin Fan roared out. Without staying put any longer, he propped up both his feet onto the ground and prepared to head forward, wanting to leave this place. Puny human, wanting to escape from the grasp of your heavens will is nothing but a fool's dream. The entire ancient saint world is under the control of your heavens will. Even if you were to escape to the edge of the world, it's all useless. Boom! Yet another thunderbolt struck down from the heavens. This boundless thunderbolt flashed out, turning the entire world extremely bright for a moment. The thunderbolt swam out as Lin Fan's entire body was caged up in it. The screeching sounds of the lightning permeated the void in a radius of thousands of miles, causing the entire world to seem as though it was engulfed in thunder. When the heavens will struck, the impact would be far from what one could possibly imagine. The ripples caused by the aftermath were equally terrifying. Lin Fan's worries from before were completely undue. Given the current situation, even if it was a divine celestial level 9 state powerful being, they might be electrocuted to hell and back even on the outside, let alone having to walk in to see how Lin Fan was doing right now. Ah, that hurts. In order to act out that he was really having a terrible time right now and could barely withstand anymore, Lin Fan put on even more effort towards acting. Ding! Eternal God Body Experience Points plus 50,000. Even though Lin Fan knew that the ancient saint world's heavens will might have only a slight bit awakened, its power was more than enough to give him a run for his money. Right now, Lin Fan's cultivation state was only that of a divine celestial level 9, 8 desolates United State. He was still quite a distance away from being a divine celestial level 10, eternal God state being. And there was even another state to that. An eternal God state being who had obtained the eternal God seat. Lin Fan did not know the sort of changes would occur when his strength was finally raised to an eternal God state. If the Fire Water Empress were here, Lin Fan had half a good mind to ask her just how in the world it would feel compared to right now. Human, you, the heavens will of the ancient saint world was startled right now. Even though he did not have a complete body yet, the fact that this human could withstand 2 thunderbolts was still extremely weird. In his opinion, this didn't make any sense at all. When Lin Fan heard the tone of the heaven's will of the ancient saint world, he froze up in his heart. This heaven's will was way too confident, wasn't he? Wasn't it just 2 thunderbolts that didn't manage to kill him? Did he have to make such a fuss over it? He had to give a few thousand thunderbolts at least. That would be more like it. I can't do it anymore. No more. My paradise is about to break down. Lin Fan exclaimed out, indicating that he was in a horrendous pain and couldn't really take it any longer. Heaven's will, if you were to come at it a few times more, yours truly will truly not be able to take it anymore. Boom, yet another thunderbolt struck down. Lin Fan's body shone immensely once more. In fact, his skin was so charred it couldn't turn any blacker than this. In the eyes of any outsider, for someone to be able to continue living under such circumstances was way too inconceivable. Ding, Eternal God Body Experience Points plus 50,000. No, yours truly has got to run. How can I possibly die in your hands? Lin Fan yelled out and spat out a mouthful of old blood. He then sprinted off into the distance as though he was giving it his all. However, Lin Fan still took care to pay attention to the situation in the void. The path of his escape had to be planned out as well, so that the heavens would think that if he didn't put in some effort, he would end up allowing this human to escape. Back when his physical body state wasn't a divine celestial level 10, eternal God state body, Lin Fan would definitely not dare to go head on stubbornly as such. The heaven's will was the heaven's will. Even if only a small part of it had awakened right now, he still wasn't something that Lin Fan could FCK up just yet. But right now, Lin Fan could face him head on straight up. Even though the mythical parasol tree had expended quite a bit of life force, that didn't amount to much. Human, you shall never be able to escape. Under the control of your heaven's will, there is no place for you to hide in the entire ancient saint world. The heavens will bellowed out as he sent yet another thunderbolt down. Ugh, blood sprayed up into the skies. Lin Fan convulsed furiously for a moment before tossing his head and running while covering his head. However, he was stumbling left and right before giving off an expression that implied that he could barely make it right now, yet had enough within him to continue running for another bit of distance. Boom, boom. At this moment, it seemed as though the heavens will of the ancient saint world was addicted to it as he sent thunderbolts one after another. They dropped down like raindrops that pitter-pattered onto Lin Fan's body. Heaven's will, are you intent on leaving me with no way out? Lin Fan yelled out. Hand over the ancient saint's sacrificial altar. No, you might as well strike me to death. Ding, Eternal God Body Experience Points plus 50,000. Ding, Eternal God Body Experience Points plus 50,000. At this moment, happiness and pain were coexisting within Lin Fan. However, happiness took the majority of it. When he heard the notifications of the experience points, Lin Fan's heart was overwhelmed with joy. For Lin Fan, this type of feelings was just awesome. Time passed by the seconds and minutes. By now, the entire world right here had completely descended into a world of thunder. In fact, in Lin Fan's opinion, each time the heavens will sent down a thunderbolt, it could probably even turn into a thunder spirit. So many experience points. A few more times and I'll be able to level up. Right now, Eternal God Body was already level 19. As long as it leveled up once more, it would reach that level 20, and might even evolve. Lin Fan did not know if it would then turn into some even more powerful physical body skill. Come on, strike me to death. At this point, Lin Fan gave up on running entirely and opened up his arms spread-eagled, as though he was welcoming a brand new future. For the current Lin Fan, what came next would be a moment of miracle. At this moment, Lin Fan was stunned. What in the world was going on? Why wasn't anything happening at all? Was the heavens will not coming at him any longer? Lin Fan opened up his eyes. Those dark clouds that were rumbling furiously started to seem unsteady right now, as though they could disappear at any moment. Holy FCK, heavens will, don't do this. You can't drop the combo at this critical moment right here. Aya, yours truly is truly not going to make it soon. Look at how badly you've made me puke blood. I can die at any moment. Last 6 times, I promise. Just 6 times more. If yours truly doesn't die, I'm literally going to be struck by thunder. Lin Fan was anxious right now. The situation in the void didn't seem favorable at this very moment. There was a blurry feeling to this right now. Initially, the void was filled with a formidable power that could rattle one's heart. But at this moment, that had weakened considerably. Bam, here it comes. Lin Fan was overwhelmed with joy instantly. He was given quite the scare by the Heaven's Will, thinking that the Heaven's Will was all done with him just like that. An extremely thick thunderbolt was channeling within the void. In Lin Fan's opinion, this thunderbolt seemed far from ordinary. Boom! The thunderbolt screeched with an extraordinary momentum to it. Lin Fan was overwhelmed with happiness at this moment. This was the way it should be. It wouldn't be befitting to be called the Heaven's Will if it didn't strike down all the way till the end. Crackle, crackle, crackle. Just at this moment, something suddenly seemed off with the situation. As the thunderbolt was channeling in the sky, it seemed to have caught fire as it spouted out black smoke. It then turned smaller and smaller, until when it eventually arrived at Lin Fan's head, it was only the size of his thumb. Ding! Eternal God Body Experience Points plus 1000. Lin Fan's jaws dropped down at this moment as his eyes were filled with absolute disbelief. He then raised his head slowly and looked up into the void, unable to break out of this daze for a long, long time. Heaven's Will, are you FC King kidding me? Chapter 804. What goes around comes back around. Chapter 804. What goes around comes back around. Heaven's Will, are you truly not attacking any longer? Lin Fan was feeling a little hurt within his heart right now. Wasn't this just pulling a prank on him? He was getting excited and close to climaxing, and yet, the other party refused to contribute any longer. How hurting was this? It can't be that because the Heaven's Will only had a part of it awakened, all the striking downs has caused its powers to deplete entirely, Lin Fan was suspicious right now, but he couldn't be certain. He did not know what the actual situation was. However, given the state of the Heaven's Will, something as such shouldn't happen in theory. Who would suddenly suppress fire right at the point when they were about to climax? Wasn't this like when people engaged in vigorous exercises, and the man suddenly announced at the very last moment that he was out of stamina and couldn't catch his breath, going soft entirely? However, it was indeed as Lin Fan had guessed. There was only a small portion of the Heaven's Will of the ancient saint world that had awakened. But, even that small portion possessed such power that mere commoners would not be able to handle it at all. Every single thunderbolt brought with it a power that could devastate the entire world. In front of that perfect acting and mockery of Lin Fan, the Heaven's Will of the ancient saint world went mad as well. It was only after he struck down till the very end that he realized that he no longer had what it took to sustain it, and could only disappear eventually. Highs. This is so helpless. Lin Fan patted his bum and just walked away. Peace returned to the world once more. The countless places that were struck by the thunderbolts were now completely devastated, and were in a horrible state, looking as terrible as the end of the world. Amongst the utmost beings of the ancient race. Why do the powers of the Heavens Will seem to have disappeared? The utmost beings of the ancient race exchanged glances with one another in bewilderment. Right now, the 6 utmost beings of the ancient race were extremely troubled. Now that 2 out of the 8 utmost beings had been killed off, it caused a huge stir in the ancient saint world. There were many powerful beings of the thousands of races who wanted to cause uprisings. At a critical moment as such, they could naturally not allow the beings of the thousands of races to make a comeback. For the utmost beings, dealing with the beings of the thousands of races was something they would leave to the beings of the thousands of races themselves. There were many beings of the thousands of races who had submitted to the ancient race. Therefore, there were many issues that did not require the personal presence of the ancient race. Falk looked over at the other utmost beings. For some unknown reason, he had a really uneasy feeling of impending danger in his heart. This was a mysterious feeling. Given their current strength and status, there shouldn't be any existence in the world that should be able to threaten them at all. Falk cast away the uneasiness of the impending danger and looked into the distance. For the utmost beings of the ancient race, as long as the infinite worlds would open up, the Heaven's Will would be able to devour the infinite worlds. And that would be the day of the ancient saint world's evolution. This was a moment they had been waiting for a long time now. There must definitely not allow any hiccups to occur, none at all. Inside the guarded ground, the moment Lin Fan stepped foot in onto the public square of the guarded ground, there was a sudden commotion as everyone turned their heads around in unison. Recently, they knew that something big had happened. Sup, everyone, I'm back again. Looking at the familiar place around him, Lin Fan could not help but chuckle out once more. The crowd in the guarded ground looked at Lin Fan in a daze. While some people knew of the great name of Lin Fan, they hadn't seen him in the flesh yet. But most of the other people could not help but exclaim out the moment they caught sight of that figure. That's the party leader of the Revolutionary Army. Why is he back again? The Revolutionary Army right now is already extremely fearsome. Now that the party leader of the Revolutionary Army is back, wouldn't they be even scarier? Mumble, chatter, clatter. The entire crowd fell into a huge commotion as they started conversing. There were even some people who left immediately to spread the news. For all the parties out there, this Revolutionary Army was too damned Mother Sea King scary. They were just a bunch of complete savages. Party leader. At this moment, a figure hurried over from the distance. When Lin Fan took a closer look, he laughed out and called out loudly, "How's everything been, bald monk?" Party leader, you've got to call me a poor monk. Reverend Shakia had replaced Lin Fan's duties and took care of the Revolutionary Army recently. He had been living days of pleasure and carefreeness. Each day would just involve him skiving and picking up some missions here and there. They were quite some carefree days. Even the robes he was wearing in the past had been changed. Naturally, he changed them to those of the highest quality. Party leader. For all of these members of the Revolutionary Army, Lin Fan was their idol. Ever since they joined the Revolutionary Army, they had found their goal in life. As for those newly joined up members of the Revolutionary Army, while they did not know what their party leader looked like, they were also filled with an immense curiosity towards this mysterious party leader. But with a single glance now, they could tell that he was indeed extraordinary. Each of them looked at Lin Fan in reverence. Their eyes were sparkling so brightly that light was almost bursting out of them. Bald monk, take a look. What is this? Suddenly, Lin Fan chuckled out as he pointed out with his finger. Instantly, a purifying Buddha light wrapped itself around his finger. There were millions of Buddhas that were chanting scriptures within this Buddha light. That extremely formidable Buddha light had Reverend Shakia open his eyes wide in astonishment. Benefactor, you couldn't have. Reverend Shakia was dumbfounded right now. He couldn't have mistaken this. To think that this was the bloody great Buddha's light of purification. This was a godly power that every single being of the Buddha race would dream about, the utmost godly power that they were all working hard towards. Ha, how about now? Are you envious now? Are you jealous? The moment Lin Fan returned, he had to flaunt it up in front of Reverend Shakia to show how awesome he was. At this moment, in the eyes of Reverend Shakia, Lin Fan was the being worth being fawned over the most right now. Benefactor, impart it to me please. Please. Reverend Shakia came before Lin Fan and begged him fervently. If he could learn this great Buddha's light of purification, wouldn't it be heaven revolting? Om. If he were to return to the Buddha race with this, wouldn't he be the center of attention? He would be the true Buddha in the eyes of all the beings of the Buddha race. Not imparting. Lin Fan chuckled out before sniggering continuously. Benefactor, look at how well I've managed the Revolutionary Army in the days you haven't been around. Just impart it to me please. Reverend Shakia truly wanted to learn it. This was a godly skill of the Buddha race. Once he learned it, his achievements would be infinite in the future. Bald monk. As the saying goes, what goes around comes back around. For yours truly here, being able to comprehend the great Buddha's light of purification out of the purification skill itself is something that's extremely easy. Well, it's not really impossible for you to learn it as well. But, I suppose it'll have to depend on your performance to come then. At the moment when Lin Fan had first noticed the purification skill, he had wanted to learn it badly. However, this bloody bald monk was still acting in front of him all day and night, refusing to tell him about it. But now, the tides had turned and he had the upper hand. Naturally, he had to tease Reverend Shakia for a little first. Reverend Shakia felt helpless right now. Shing. At this moment, the void vibrated as a passageway opened up. This was a passageway that led to the uppermost area of the guarded ground. Bald monk, take your time and think about it. No hurries though, I've got something on now, so I'll leave first, aight. Lin Fan hopped into the passageway straight away and waved bye to Reverend Shakia. Looking at that yearning look on Reverend Shakia's face of wanting to learn but being unable to, Lin Fan could only chuckle out. After Lin Fan's departure, Reverend Shakia took in a deep breath and encouraged himself in secret, for this period of time, seems like I've got to let go of my dignity. No matter what, I've got to get my hands on that great Buddha's light of purification. At the same time, Reverend Shakia felt extremely indignant that Lin Fan was able to learn the great Buddha's light of purification. He was a genius of the Buddha race. And yet, he was unable to comprehend that skill out of purification. How could Benefactor Lin have done it? Unable to understand how things turned out as such, Reverend Shakia gave up on thinking about it eventually. Now that Lin Fan was back, this was quite the headache for some of the parties of the guarded ground. However, there was nothing they could do at all. During that gang fight the last time around, they nearly had their own shish ts whacked out of them. And for those chicks that were originally in their parties, they had all defected over to the Revolutionary Army. For some of those stronger parties, this was undoubtedly just a form of humiliation for them. Chapter 805, Continue the Scams. Chapter 805, Continue the Scams. Guarded ground, peak area. Old man, you're inviting me over the moment I get back. Do you have many things that you wish to tell me about? Lin Fan walked out from the void and peered left and right. This was truly the first time he was here at this place. However, the thing that struck Lin Fan was the fact that there was another old man beside the old man. However, on second thought, it was only right that he would seek a partner, since it was lonely living alone. And this is your disciple? He's a talent indeed. The old man beside Feng Qingzi sized up Lin Fan from head to toe before speaking out. He had only heard about this disciple from Feng Qingzi before. He was especially startled when he heard that this disciple could create an earth-shattering ruckus in front of the utmost beings of the ancient race. Out of all the beings of the thousands of races, only the 4 guardians of the guarded grounds could pit themselves against the utmost beings with their lives. While there were definitely other powerful beings with a formidable cultivation state, they were still far from being able to go up against the utmost beings. Of course, that was unless they were like the Fire-Water Empress, who had a matchless potential without requiring the eternal god seat. But, how many savants like that could exist in this world? N-O-V-E in .c ohm. Ha ha ha, I'm no talent, I'm a prodigy. Old man, where has my dear Cruel gone to? Lin Fan chuckled out. Lad, you had better tell me honestly. What happened in the end? How is Saint now? Feng Qingzi did not reply to Lin Fan's question. Instead, he asked solemnly. This was a matter of imperative importance to Feng Qingzi. Oh, you wish to know? Lin Fan grinned out. At this moment, he had thought up of a good idea. Well, recently, I have been pretty lacking in Shengyang pills. If only. Here, these are all the Shengyang pills that your revered master has. Without any hesitation, Feng Qingzi stretched out his hands as a Shengyang pills river flowed out. Within it, multiple Shengyang pills dragons roared out and bolted out of his sleeves. Old man, you're so generous. Lin Fan was stunned. To think that this old man, Feng Qingzi, would be this generous before he had even finished his sentence. This was something that had him a little taken aback. With just a casual count, Lin Fan counted 1 trillion Shengyang pills. This was something way too startling for Lin Fan. Alright, stop beating around the bush now. Hurry up and tell me. Feng Qingzi was feeling pained right now. That trillion Shengyang pills was his entire life's savings. For all these years, other than the expenses of the guarded ground, this was all that he had managed to save up in the end. Even though Lin Fan did not say anything much on the front, he was secretly extremely grateful for this old man. Without hiding the truth, he spoke up right after. Regarding Saint, I've already killed him. I've also obtained the ancient Saint's sacrificial altar. Indeed, Feng Qingzi exchanged glances with the other old man. The guesses in their hearts had finally been affirmed. At the same time, they heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. Dear good disciple, you truly gave your revered master a great shock. What about that eternal god seat? You must have taken it, right? For Feng Qingzi, while it was naturally exhilarating to know that an utmost being of the ancient race had been killed, the most important thing was still that eternal god seat. Hue, take a look at what this is. Instantly, the Ancient One appeared beside Lin Fan. The moment the Ancient One appeared, a formidable aura erupted forth. The expression of Feng Qingzi and the old man tensed up. They were instantly alarmed, however, they relaxed soon after. When Feng Qingzi looked at the ancient race being before him, he could not help but gaze in wonder. When Lin Fan caught sight of the stupefied expression of both old men, he could not help but chuckle out. This is the Ancient One, the utmost being of the ancient race from 10,000 years ago. However, he has already been subjugated by me. Lin Fan explained. Now that there were 2 utmost beings in his hands, this was a formidable force all on its own. Even if they were to face up with the utmost beings of the ancient race, they would have a chance of winning. Great, this is simply way too great. Feng Qingzi yelled out, feeling extremely heartened. This was the most invigorating news they had had for the past 10,000 years. That's for sure, you can set your mind at ease towards anything I am to do. This time around, because of the ancient saint's sacrificial altar, I made a trip back down to the Xuanwang world. Right now, I've already cultivated the entire Xuanwang world under me. I'm now nurturing the first batch of powerful beings within them. It's just that when I headed back up, I bumped into the Heaven's Will. Lin Fan continued. Heaven's Will. When Feng Qingzi heard this, his face could not help but turn stern. Given our strength right now, it's an even fight against the utmost beings of the ancient race. However, the crux of the problem lies with the Heaven's Will now. That time around, I found out from the mouths of the utmost beings that the guarded grounds were only a place that was granted a brief respite of life for the beings of the thousands of races from the Heaven's Will. Once the Heaven's Will truly awakens, it's probable that the guarded grounds would cease to exist as well. Feng Qingzi replied. Why would that be? This was the first time Lin Fan was hearing about this. From what he had known, he had always thought that the guarded grounds were a reprieve from death and the dangers out there. To think that this reprieve would be granted by the Heaven's Will. Once the infinite worlds are to open up, what does the Heaven's Will stand to gain from it? Lin Fan asked. This is a question that has too many factors involved in it. However, at the very beginning of it all, the infinite worlds were a universe without any life within it. However, the Heaven's Will of the ancient saint world had already existed at that time. In order to strengthen himself, the Heaven's Will of the ancient saint world had allowed the infinite worlds to start breeding life of its own. At the same time, each time the law of the universe was fully refined and completed, the Heaven's Will of the ancient saint world would devour the infinite worlds at the prime moment. At that time, he would break through his own personal barrier and transcend to a higher state. A long, long time ago, we could even trace it back to the chaotic riots of the old ancient times. The beings of the thousands of races did not have to ascend at that time. The ancient saint world was filled with ancient race beings. At that time, there were powerful beings that reigned supreme over their various worlds. When the Heaven's Will wanted to devour the infinite worlds, it was met with immense resistance. While the Heaven's Will might have failed back then, the powerful beings who survived were barely a handful. At the same time, because the Heaven's Will had expended way too much, he set down a rule right before he entered that deep slumber to prevent something as such from happening once more. All the beings of the infinite worlds, as long as their cultivation states hit a certain state, they would have to ascend. This was to ensure that the strength of the thousands of races remained in a feeble and weak state continuously. At the same time, this would allow the ancient race beings to massacre and devour the living beings in order to strengthen themselves. When Lin Fan heard Feng Qingzi's explanations, everything became clear all of a sudden. So, this guy was just learning from his mistakes right now. It seemed like the Heaven's Will of the ancient saint world was once a dumb *CK as well. But after that failure, he had decided to amend the rules. Seemed like the Heaven's Will of the ancient saint world had to succeed this time around for sure. But for Lin Fan, no matter if the heavens were to topple down or the earth were to be overturned, anyone who dared to act audaciously before him would be trampled down. So, that's the case. But old man, where's my cruel? Lin Fan asked. Lad, couldn't you give some suggestions or whatnot? Your cruel is here with me, don't worry. Feng Qingzi's speech earlier on was quite solemn. He had thought that this lad would give out a well-thought response to it. To think that this lad was entirely uninterested. This had Feng Qingzi feeling a little exasperated. No matter how much we plan out or think about it right now, what use would that be? During the riots of the old ancient times back then, did you experience it all personally? Lin Fan asked. No, I've heard this from the previous generation. Feng Qingzi replied. See, isn't that then? Old man, let me tell you. People these days are gossip mongers. One will spread to 10, 10 will spread to hundreds. At the end of the rumor spreading, everything will sound extremely horrific. So, you don't have to think too much about it. When the matter comes to hand, we'll deal with it then. When that time truly comes, we'll give it a good thought about what to do. Lin Fan waved his hand dismissively and shrugged it off. I've got to bring my cruel out with me now. I'm in dire need of Shenyang pills recently. I've got to find some powerful beings and have them dedicate their lives to cultivating Shenyang pills for me. Right now, that was the only thought in Lin Fan's mind, finding some powerful beings and purifying them forcefully, so that they would cultivate out Shenyang pills for him all day all night. And at the same time, he would rob some powerful beings of the ancient race and swipe them entirely clean. Once he had accumulated enough Shenyang pills, that would truly be the time when he would really soar. Alright, I'm gonna head out soon. By the looks of it, these guarded grounds are not going to be safe for much longer as well. Are you chummy with the other 3 guardians of the guarded grounds? Lin Fan asked. Why would you ask that? Feng Qingzi returned the question. If you're chummy with them, then talk to them and have them contribute some Shenyang pills. If you're not, then I've got to scam them out of it. Lin Fan said. Feng Qingzi stared wide-eyed at this disciple before him. He then shook his head silently, not too chummy. Oh oi! The moment Feng Qingzi was done with his words, Lin Fan left immediately. This lad, gosh, he really doesn't know anything about respect at all. Looking at how that lad left without a single word, Feng Qingzi was left pretty speechless. Haha, this disciple of yours is pretty interesting. Highs, I don't even know how I took a liking to this lad back then. Feng Qingzi shook his head while saying. Chapter 806. Something is off about this. Chapter 806. Something is off about this. The moment Lin Fan left the place of the old man, he did a quick count of his Shengyang pills. Right now, his entire life's savings amounted to 1.5 trillion Shengyang pills. While this might seem like a lot at first glance, 100 years in a single thought required 10 trillion Shengyang pills. To Lin Fan, that was an amount enough to fill up an entire ocean. Benefactor. The moment Lin Fan appeared, Reverend Shakia came running over. His face was extremely docile as though he had suddenly turned all well-behaved and meek. Highs, I have sinned. To think that even a high monk of the Buddha race would forsake his sense of self in the face of a skill. Lin Fan lamented. Oh kind benefactor, please have some pity on me. Reverend Shakia pleaded pitifully. For Reverend Shakia, this was an extremely tortuous revelation he was having. I'm feeling a little hungry. Lin Fan rubbed his belly saying. I'll treat you to food. My shoulders are feeling a little sore. Benefactor, say no more. This poor monk will give you a full body massage. Reverend Shakia did not have to think twice. For the sake of learning the great Buddha's light of purification, Reverend Shakia was willing to give up everything. Even if he had to work like a dog, he would definitely do it. There's no hurry to this issue. First, I'd have to introduce some people to you. Lin Fan chuckled out. He then brought Zhan Yongxian, Zhi Chao, Yu Juling, Chicky, and his 3 chicklings. When they came out, all of them were confounded. It was as though they could not understand how they were still at another place before, and instantly, a patch of darkness descended and they appeared here. Now that Lin Fan was in control over the Xuanwang world, he could enable anything with a single thought. Even if it was to drag people from the Xuanwang world over forcefully, it was something that he could do with the snap of his fingers. Hubby, where is this place? Zhan Yongxian had a broad knowledge of things. However, when she realized that she had appeared at a ridiculous place all of a sudden, even she was a little afraid. If not for the fact that Lin Fan was right here, she might have dropped her entire head from fear instead. Master, this is. Zhi Chao and Yu Juling spoke up. By now, the changes between the both of them were quite significant. While the both of them were still tied together, it seemed as though they didn't feel like there was anything wrong any longer. It was as if they were used to it by now. As for Chicky, he just hopped up onto Lin Fan's shoulders. Towards where he was right now, it didn't matter to him at all. As long as his old bro was around, everything would be all steady. Benefactor, this. Looking at how Lin Fan was churning out living beings, Reverend Shakia was shocked and could not understand anything at all. Could it be that Benefactor Lin's current strength had already turned this sick? Horrifying. This was way too horrifying. This is my wife, Zhan Yongxian. These 2 here are my disciples. Lin Fan introduced. Kukik Koo. Chicky was a little indignant now as he used his head to knock against Lin Fan's face. It was as though he was protesting over Lin Fan's lack of introduction towards him. Alright, I've got it. Gosh, you're just a little chicken here, and you want an introduction as well. This is Chicky, he's my little bro, Kukik Koo. Chicky crowed out for a long time and extended his wings as though he wanted to shake hands. Reverend Shakia was stunned as he held out his hands involuntarily as well. This is Bald Monk, Lin Fan commented casually. Zhan Yongxian was someone who was well brought up. Therefore, she merely chuckled, Great master, nice to meet you. Zhan Yongxian felt that this place was extremely weird. For her, the aura of this monk before her was incredibly vast. It was as though it was boundless and limitless, with no ends to be seen at all. Oh, so, you're the wife of Benefactor Lin. This poor monk here is Reverend Shakia. Reverend Shakia's expression changed as he put on the look of a saintly and high monk. Kukik Koo. At this moment, the 3 little chicklings of Chicky ran over to hug Lin Fan's legs and started crowing out loudly as well, as though they too wanted an introduction. Lin Fan lowered his head with a helpless look on his face and eventually shook his head while saying. The one wearing gold and silver accessories all over is chicken big. This non-mainstream hipster is chicken too. This one that's fatter than fat itself is chicken fat. Pishu, pishu, Pishu. Right after Lin Fan's introductions, the three sick chicklings immediately stretched out their wings to Reverend Shakia. Their intentions were clear. Come and shake our wings to indicate that we know one another now. Looking at these three weird chickens, Reverend Shakia was stunned for a moment as well. Eventually, he squatted down and extended his hand. Kukik koo. Chicky stood on Lin Fan's shoulders and crowed out loud while nodding his head in satisfaction. He was saying that these three chicklings of his did not throw his face and had really good manners. Yunxian, this is the guarded ground, one of the only few safe places in the ancient saint world. Lin Fan explained. However, Yunxian could feel that the energy ripples being emitted out from all directions were extremely strong. It was as though she was surrounded by a bunch of powerful beings. However, being beside Lin Fan, any bit of uneasiness had dissipated along with the winds instantly. Bald monk, let's go eat. Benefactor, this. From time to time, Reverend Shakia would keep his mind on the great Buddha's light of purification. For Reverend Shakia, as long as he could learn the great Buddha's light of purification, he would be willing to do anything. We'll talk after eating. Lin Fan chuckled out. All right then. Meal table. Lin Fan observed all the delicacies around. He had a good chick-ticket. Chicken Big was sorting out his accessories. Chicken 2 was combing his hair. Chicken Fat was just eating on and on and on. His belly was extremely bloated right now. Lin Fan and Zan Yunxian were just enjoying a chat while looking at one another in the eyes. They were filled with love right now. Reverend Shakia blinked his eyes at the scene before him. He had suddenly felt as though he was extremely out of place. In order to rid himself of this awkward feeling, Reverend Shakia decided to seek out the two disciples for a good chat. However, when he cast his sights over, he was stumped. Juling, I want to eat this. Zhichao pointed out. Okay, come, here's a big piece. Juling smiled so widely her eyes couldn't even be seen. I'll get fat if I eat too much. No, you wouldn't, definitely not. Zhichao's figure is the best. You'll definitely not turn fat. Wow, this is delicious. Juling, you have some too. The two little brats were looking at one another while smiling out gently. Those gentle voices of theirs rang out within the entire restaurant like the sounds of heavens. It was extremely moving. Lin Fan was enjoying a private conversation with Zan Yunxian. But just at this moment, he stopped whatever he was doing right now. Lin Fan had suddenly realized that something did not seem right. He looked at the two brats, Zhichao and Juling. The expressions that they gave off caused a fearful feeling to rise in his heart. That sweet, tender-looking gaze at one another, every single motion they made were extremely intimate. Cough, cough. Lin Fan faked a cough, implying that they should maintain their image. However, it was as though Zhichao and Juling did not hear it at all. They continued laughing and chatting. That smile of theirs had all the guests at the restaurant staring at them fixatedly. In the eyes of these guests, these two brats were so endearing. Zhichao, Juling, how about letting your master release you guys from the seal? Lin Fan hadn't paid much attention to these two brats. But now that he did, he realized that something bad seemed to be happening. Ah, master, that won't do. We're quite fine like this. I'm already all used to it with senior sister. That's right, I feel like it's pretty nice for me to be with junior sister as such. Zhichao and Juling both shook their heads indicating that they did not need that. But how inconvenient is this? Lin Fan rephrased his words. He felt that he shouldn't be too straightforward still. It's really convenient, that's right, I feel nothing about it at all. When I bathe, I even get to have someone scrubbing my back. That's right, that's right. Hearing the two of them defend to such an extent, Lin Fan instantly did not wish to say anything any further. Lin Fan then moved on to bothering Zan Yunxian instead by twitching his eyes incessantly, implying that as their matriarch, she had to say something as well to persuade them out of this situation. However, Zan Yunxian merely chuckled and grinned gently. Hubby, I think this is quite good, isn't it? N-O-V-E in .c Om. Lin Fan. Chapter 807. Enmity up ahead. Chapter 807. Enmity up ahead. Lin Fan had suddenly realized that he had done something outrageous. However, looking at the situation right now, it seemed a little as though it was too late for salvation. Eventually, he just sighed helplessly and allowed things to remain. But when Lin Fan thought about it a little more, he felt that this feeling was not bad either. After the meal was over, Reverend Shakia was ever so attentive to Lin Fan. He was just that close from piggybacking Lin Fan back in fact. Night time. Bald monk, I'll hand this over to you now, Look at how nice I am to you. Lin Fan handed the great Buddha's light of purification over to Reverend Shakia. Nice. You're the nicest ever. This poor monk is so touched I'm about to cry. Reverend Shakia felt way too moved right now. This was the great Buddha's light of purification. If he could cultivate this skill to its pinnacle, he would be absolutely heaven-defying. Boo-hoo-hoo. The more he thought about it, the more touched he was. Eventually, Reverend Shakia could hold it back no longer as he cried out. This was great fortune that he had accumulated over a couple of lifetimes. As for Lin Fan, he didn't have that much of an interest towards the great Buddha's light of purification right now. He was all done with learning that, even if it were an utmost being of the ancient race, Lin Fan could purify him now. However, the prerequisite was that the utmost being must have been walloped so hard he was practically like a dead dog. That was when the purification success rate would be the highest. Within the house, Zhan Yongxian stood with her long, smooth hair lying on her shoulders gently. That alluring look of hers had Lin Fan feeling a little excited now. My little wifey, I'm going to come now. Lin Fan sniggered, showing his impatience. Look at how all hurried and whatnot. It's not as though we won't have time in the future. Zhan Yongxian laid on the bed. Looking at this impatient look on Lin Fan, she pursed her lips and smiled out. She then leaned forward and asked Lin Fan to sit down. Are you heading out tomorrow? Zhan Yongxian massaged Lin Fan's shoulders gently. Those tender hands of hers were silky smooth and long. Under the gleam of the firelight, they let out an even more attractive glow. Yes, tomorrow, I'm prepared to bring Chicky over to the colossal dragon race so that he can seek out his roots. Lin Fan replied as he enjoyed the sensation brought to him by those tender hands on his shoulders. Hubby, I want a child. Zhan Yongxian lowered her head and moved her lips closer to Lin Fan's ears before whispering gently. That soft and fluffy sensation caused Lin Fan to shiver up. It was all gentle and soothing, practically pulling at his heartstrings. Haven't I been trying all this while? Lin Fan was flustered in his heart. It had been so many times now. And yet, he hadn't hit the bullseye even once. This didn't make any sense at all. It couldn't be that he had some issues with his body, right? But that shouldn't be either. His body was one that no illnesses or diseases could penetrate through while casting all evils out. How could he have that sort of issue? Then try a little harder tonight, please. To the outside world, Zhan Yongxian was a grandmaster. But each day when night descended, she would transform into a little succubus before Lin Fan that sank her hooks deep into his heart. A tender hand started moving down along Lin Fan's chest. It moved all the way down till those icy, cold fingers could give it a gentle tug. Instantly, Lin Fan was possessed. Arg! Lin Fan bolted upright, his eyes burning with a fiery blaze within them. It's time to show a true display of skill. He hugged Zhan Yongxian up entirely. Recently, I've been researching about a few positions that can improve my productivity immensely. Zhan Yongxian's cheeks flushed red as she replied softly, Tonight, I'll do anything you wish. The moment Lin Fan heard this, he couldn't hold it back anymore as the blood in his body rumbled furiously. The next day, Benefactor, what's wrong with you? Why do you look like you're in a bad shape? Reverend Shakia hadn't had a single wink of sleep the previous night. He had spent all his time researching the great Buddha's light of purification. Because he had a strong potential, he could induct himself with the skill in just a single night. It's nothing, bald monk. This time around when I head out, I'll leave the revolutionary army in your hands. Recruit more members, Lin Fan instructed. There were way too many positions that were performed last night. By the time he woke up, even Lin Fan was feeling a little tired. This was even more tiring than fighting with an utmost being of the ancient race. Don't worry, leave it to me, Reverend Shakia replied with confidence. All right then, I'll depend on you. For Lin Fan, the revolutionary army had its usage as well. This time around, Lin Fan was prepared to bring Chicky with him to the colossal dragon race and seek out his biological mother. Lin Fan was almost certain that Chicky was a mix between the colossal dragon race and the phoenix race. But as for Chicky, he did not have any feelings towards his biological parents and whatnot. However, this wasn't the case for Lin Fan. To him, the colossal dragon race was such a strong race. Since that was the case, they must definitely have an immense supply of Shengyang pills. If Chicky could rule over the colossal dragon race, wouldn't all that wealth belong to him as well? Given Lin Fan's current strength, he was still some way away from the powerful beings right at the top. However, just his physical body state alone was enough for him to be an invincible existence. Therefore, no matter how big the world was, there couldn't be any place that Lin Fan couldn't head to. Outside the guarded ground, alright, So we're settled on this issue all right, Chicky. Whether or not this can succeed is all up to you. Lin Fan said stealthily as though he was afraid of being overheard. Chicky looked at Lin Fan then raised up 5 chicken feathers. What does that mean? Lin Fan was stunned, not quite understanding. He then snapped back to his senses. Holy FCK. You can't be saying that you want 50% of it, right, Chicky? Cuckoo. Chicky nodded his head furiously, faster than anything in this world. Holy FCK. You're way too scammy, aren't you? Lin Fan yelped out. Why the FCK does this Mother Sea King Chicky seem like some fraudulent merchant right now? And the one thing that didn't seem to occur in this conversation between Lin Fan and Chicky was the thought of what would happen if this didn't fall through. To this man and chicken duo, it was as though this entire thing was already a done deal. Chicky was exasperated as he pointed out at his 3 sons. His meaning was clear, he had a big family now, with 3 big spenders. He would have many expenditures to take care of in the future. Highs. To think that the relationship between the both of us would have turned so fragile now. To think that you would come talking to me about splitting our family fortune. I'm truly saddened right now. In the future, I'm not going to raise you up anymore. Lin Fan put on a pained look as though he had been dealt a severe emotional blow by Chicky. Looking at that expression on Lin Fan's face, Chicky hesitated for a moment. He then carefully raised a single chicken feather. Deal, let's go. Lin Fan's face changed immediately as that pained expression transformed into a bright smiling face. He then pulled Chicky along with him and dove into the void, heading for the territory of the colossal dragon race of the top 10 old ancient beasts. No-vel-b in .c ohm. Given his current strength, the blink of an eye was enough for him to travel across millions of miles. He darted by several huge ancient race territories, not even bothering to keep himself in stealth mode. That was how tyrannical he was right now. If the utmost beings of the ancient race were to discover him, that'd be for the best now. As long as the other party dared to come take him on, he would definitely FCK them up. With 2 utmost beings by his side, there's no way he was going to lose out in a fight. There's something strange here. After crossing 3 great territories of the ancient race, Lin Fan had suddenly realized that the world around here seemed somewhat different. There was a thick killing intent shrouding the air. The entire sky seemed morbid and grim, and was filled with the scent of blood. Holy FCK. This place couldn't have just been through a huge battle, could it? Lin Fan was stunned. In his eyes, this entire place was practically akin to hell on earth right now. Chicky stood on Lin Fan's shoulders and those chicken eyes of his could not help but grow serious. He felt as though the entire sky was about to topple over right now. Pishu. Instantly, several streaks of light flashed by in the distance. Chicky, there's some enmity at play up ahead. Let us sneakily head up. Cuckoo. Chicky flapped his wings excitedly. Chapter 808. The chance is here. Time to appear. Chapter 808. The chance is here. Time to appear. Lin Fan was extremely sneaky as he reined in his aura. That stealth technique of his was even more heaven-revolting. He and Chicky hid in the deepest layers of the void surreptitiously. Herg. All of a sudden, a loud roar boomed out, causing the entire world to tremble. Several million feet long colossal dragons traversed across the heavens and earth. Every single claw that slammed down caused the world to rattle, tearing apart mountains and rivers. The void that was ripped apart by those claws took a long time to regenerate. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun, your empress here has misjudged you. To think that you would be a traitorous dog working for the ancient race. A colossal dragon which was entirely snow white turned around and transformed into a woman. This woman was donning on a battle armor while wielding a dragon's halberd in her hands. Her features were extremely ravishing. Holy FCK, isn't that the Dragon Empress Shen Wu? That's the chick of the colossal dragon race whose B*OBS were burst up by me. What sort of method did this chick use to allow her B*OBS to grow back again? Isn't that too heaven-defying? No, I've got to observe it for a while longer. Just what is the background of this ancestor dragon Wan Zun? Lin Fan, who was hidden in the void right now, was a little astonished. Without acting rashly, he wanted to observe the situation for a while longer before deciding on what to do. There was a colossal dragon whose scales were pitch black. His body was immensely titanic, akin to the Great Wall of China. One could not even tell of the ends of its body. Even a slight movement of the colossal dragon would bring about a quake for the world. With a flash of black light, the dragon took on a human form. Following closely behind him, several other colossal dragons reverted to their human forms as well as they stood behind the ancestor dragon Wan Zun. Shen Wu, it's because I see you as a rare talent that I'm offering to pull you into the ancient race. You had better know what's good for you. The body of the ancestor dragon Wan Zun was extremely huge. He wore a dragon's robe coupled with a domineering expression on his face. Every single motion he made brought with it an overwhelming force to it. Bullshit, I would rather die than submit to the ancient race. The Dragon Empress Shen Wu roared out as she gripped the dragon's halberd in her hands even tighter. She knew that she wasn't a match for the ancestor dragon Wan Zun. If not for the fact that the ancestor dragon Wan Zun wanted to pull her into the ancient race and had intentionally given her chances throughout the fight, she wouldn't have been able to escape to this point. Shen Wu, stop resisting now. I would only require a single breath to kill you. But, because I acknowledge you as a talent, you had better know what's good for you. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun spoke out. HMPH, don't put it so nicely. I've seen how you've looked at your empress here with those lustful eyes. All you want to do is FCK me, don't you? And a traitor of the colossal dragon race such as yourself thinks that he's befitting of that. The Dragon Empress Shen Wu was straightforward and did not give the ancestor dragon Wan Zun any face at all. When Lin Fan, who was hidden in the void, heard these words, he nearly spat out a mouthful of old blood. Goodness, BTCHES are really tyrannical, no joke. But, how did he not see this side of her back when he busted her B*OBS up the other time? That was really strange indeed. At this moment, Lin Fan had finally understood what was going on. This ancestor dragon Wan Zun and whatnot had already sided with the ancient race and was now trying to pull his fellow race members in, but was rejected. But, the fact that the Dragon Empress Shen Wu hadn't surrendered even after being chased till here had Lin Fan pretty impressed with that attitude. The enemy of an enemy was a friend. Lin Fan wanted to come forth and rescue this Dragon Empress Shen Wu. However, he decided to place that thought on hold for a moment first. He had once displayed the B*OBS bursting fist of the North Star, causing the most precious lumps of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu to explode out. Even though she might have recovered from that by now, the vengeance was something that couldn't possibly be erased this easily. After all women were petty. Even if he were to save her right now, it was hard to say that she wouldn't turn around and backstab him afterward. He had to come up with a good plan. And, the plan right now was to wait for the moment when the Dragon Empress Shen Wu was in absolute despair. He would then come forth flamboyantly and rescue her from the depths of her predicament. But on second thought, that didn't sound all that right either. Suddenly, it struck Lin Fan. That plan was lacking in any emotional involvement. I've got it. At this moment, Lin Fan had decided on the perfect plan. He would wait until the final moment when the Dragon Empress Shen Wu could no longer hold up before descending personally. Shen Wu, why you? Fine, since that's the case, I shall turn you into a mindless slave of mine then. The ancestor dragon Wan Zun was incensed right now. His face was so dark it was extremely frightening. How could a powerful being such as the ancestor dragon Wan Zun permit himself to be insulted by a woman as such? HMPH, the bunch of you, are you guys going to follow him and betray the colossal dragon race? Dragon Empress Shen Wu asked the few people behind the ancestor dragon Wan Zun. Dragon Empress Shen Wu, we're just choosing the side of the strong. After painstakingly cultivating to this state, how can we be willing to die in the calamity just like this? The few members of the colossal dragon race behind the ancestor dragon Wan Zun replied indifferently. So that's the way it is, huh? When the going gets tough, there will always be some degenerates who will choose the path of betrayal. Today, I, the Dragon Empress Shen Wu, shall have all of you killed here. Wan Zun, you're not even as worthy as a single woman such as myself. What face do you have to still call yourself the ancestor dragon? You had better return that title to the colossal dragon race. God battling all beings. Instantly, the Dragon Empress Shen Wu started shifting and transforming. It was as though she was now versed in the skill of splitting up her body as she turned into 8 of herself. These 8 Dragon Empress Shen Wus each occupied a single spot. The dragon halberds in their hands rumbled with dragon chi furiously that covered the entire world. A single sweep of the halberds tore the void into 2 like pieces of paper as 8 different dragon chis revolved all around before converging together. Go to hell! A bedazzling gleam of light burst forth. This heaven-shattering momentum swept down and bolted out towards the ancestor dragon Wan Zun. Shen Wu, do you really think that you're a match against me with just your strength? Know your place. The ancestor dragon Wan Zun was neither rushed nor hurried as those massive palms of his extended out slowly. As though they could cover the entire sky, they reached out towards the shining gleam of light. The colossal dragon that was formed from the 8 dragon cheese was instantly destroyed in the palms of the ancestor dragon Wanzun. He then sucked in all of the dragon chi instantly. God battling 12 stances. It's useless. I am the ancestor dragon. All of your dragon chi is nothing but nutrients for me. The ancestor dragon Wanzun pointed out with his finger. Instantly, the entire time and space seemed as though it was frozen. A massive amount of power burst forth instantly, causing the void to tear apart inch by inch. Even if it were the Dragon Empress Shen Wu, she couldn't withstand this tremendous amount of power. The dragon's halberd in her hands gave off a cracking sound as many crevices appeared on it instantly. Ugh! She was knocked back with fresh blood spraying all over, dripping down on that voluptuous chest of hers. Flowing down her battle armor, it floated gently in the sky. November LBJNN. Dragon Empress, I shall have you trained as my slave and endure days and nights of endless torment. That aloof dignity of yours shall be destroyed entirely. From then on, you will be nothing but a dog who can just prostrate obediently before me and be ordered around by me. The ancestor dragon Wanzun burst out laughing wildly as his eyes shone with a sinister gleam. The Dragon Empress Shen Wu shivered momentarily as her eyes shone ferociously. Wanzun, don't get happy just yet. Bowing down to the ancient race shall have you turn into the dog of the ancient race for your life. HMPH, courting death. Go, take her down. The ancestor dragon Wanzun ordered. Yes. At this moment, the Dragon Empress Shen Wu was at the end of her path as she looked at the oncoming fellow beings of the colossal dragon race. She was ready to fight to her death. She had listened to the words of the ancestor dragon Wanzun and headed out of the grounds of the colossal dragon. But, to think that the ancestor dragon Wanzun would actually lead her towards the side of the ancient race. Ha ha ha! The Dragon Empress Shen Wu burst out laughing as the dragon chi around her entire body started exploding. A series of golden dragon chi streamed out from her body before swiveling up and caging the entire world. This is bad, she's going to self-destruct. At this moment, Lin Fan, who was hidden in the void the entire time, ended up smiling and nodding in approval. The chance had appeared. The Dragon Empress Shen Wu had no other way out now. This was the time where he should be displaying his true acting skills now. Chicky, don't come up for this show this time around. This will have to depend on the performance of your old bro here. Lin Fan kept Chicky in his paradise before leaping out. Under broad daylight, how dare you guys attempt to kill a chick? This is a crime that the heavens shall not pardon. A cold flash of light appeared, and Lin Fan appeared between the world instantly. Tossing his hair back, he scored full marks for his disposition as he declared out tyrannically. Chapter 809, Start of the Plan. Chapter 809, Start of the Plan. Plans as such were things Lin Fan was long familiar with in his heart. And actual evidence had proven that plans as such were the most captivating to one's heart, and brought the most rewards as well. However, the prerequisite of a plan as such was that the other party must not possess a strength stronger than his. As for the ancestor dragon Wanzun right now, he was quite a bit stronger than Lin Fan was. However, Lin Fan wasn't phased at all. His physical body state was at divine celestial level 10, eternal god state. It wasn't as though this guy could whack him to death. Now in this extremely dangerous moment of her life, the Dragon Empress Shen Wu suddenly found a man appearing right behind her. Her heart jerked momentarily as hope bubbled up immediately. But, when she took a proper look at this figure, the Dragon Empress Shen Wu suddenly realized that something was off about this. A cold breeze blew by as Lin Fan's fringe was lifted up gently, revealing his looks. The face of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu, which was filled with hope, initially took a stark change when she caught sight of this foreign yet familiar face. It's you. The face of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu was grim and frightening right now. She hadn't expected that the man who would appear to save her would be her greatest foe in her lifetime. The moment Lin Fan heard these words, he was naturally all ready for it. After all, he had once punched out the chest of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu. As a woman, it was only natural for the Dragon Empress Shen Wu to take him as the foe of a lifetime. However, for Lin Fan, the one thing he loved to do was to turn from an enemy into a benefactor. Even though there was a huge challenge in case of this Dragon Empress Shen Wu, Lin Fan was someone who got even more excited the greater the challenge was. Lin Fan turned his body around. That righteous expression of his started changing ever so slightly when he caught sight of that Dragon Empress Shen Wu. It was as though he had seen something outrageous. It turned a little surprised, then startled, then shocked. Yo. Lin Fan purposely dragged out his voice, as though he was in utmost disbelief. His facial expressions were extremely rich as well. B-starred. The Dragon Empress Shen Wu would never ever forget that matter. That was her most humiliating experience ever. That absolutely perfect chest of hers was whacked into exploding by this fella before her. That was something that turned the Dragon Empress Shenwu sullen for a really long time. In the end, she had to pay a huge price to repair her B*OBS. For the Dragon Empress Shenwu, the greatest wish in her entire life was to meet this guy once more so that she could crush him beneath her feet harshly. She would have this man understand just how much of an ordeal she had to undergo in the past, just how important BOBs were to a woman. Lin Fan had already memorized this plan by heart. Therefore, he was neither frantic nor hurried. Tossing his robes, he put on a straight face. Those are affairs of the future. As such, let us discuss them in the future. While you and I may have had some unhappiness in the past, the current situation isn't one where I can sit idly by and watch. Lin Fan swept his robes and replied calmly. He then looked over at the ancestor dragon Wan Zun and blasted out fiercely. You siding with the ancient race is an utter humiliation for all of us from the thousands of races. And the fact that you're forcing a chick to submit to you forcefully right now is something that even the heavens would not pardon. With me around, you can only dream of succeeding. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun looked at this person before him and frowned slightly, then let out a contemptuous smile. I remember now, you're that human from the past. To think that you would appear here once more. The Dragon Empress Shenwu once had a feud with you. That matter, I can choose to look over it. However, I'd advise you to get the hell out right now. The ancient dragon Wan Zun said with an overbearing aura. He indeed knew who this person was now. Back when he had saved the Dragon Empress Shenwu, he had intended to step forth personally to take down this human. However, because that wasn't his true body, there was nothing he could do about it. But now that this human had appeared here, Ancestor Dragon Wan Zhu did have the idea to stamp down this pesky meddling fella right here and now. However, on second thought, he decided to forget it. It'd be good to save the trouble. The Dragon Empress Shenwu had a pretty decent cultivation state. For a human to be able to push the Dragon Empress Shenwu to that extent, naturally, he couldn't be all that weak either. HMPH. Dream on. While the Dragon Empress Shenwu has a feud with yours truly, the fact that she has the courage to stand up against the ancient race means that she's a living being worthy of my respect. Given the situation right now, do you think that I will give way? Lin Fan said with a righteous look. He then turned around and said to the Dragon Empress Shenwu, leave first. I'll hold him back here. You, N-O, Vel, B, in .C, Ohm. The Dragon Empress Shenwu was taken aback. She hadn't expected that this human would offer to help her stand up against the ancestor dragon Wan Zun. This brought a look of disbelief on the face of the Dragon Empress Shenwu. When she had first seen this human, her heart was already burning with a boundless fury. She wanted to kill him cruelly. However, the behavior that was displayed by this human right now was something that had the Dragon Empress Shenwu entirely startled. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun burst out laughing wildly, haha. Human, do you really think that you have what it takes to stand in my way? When Lin Fan caught sight of the brazen attitude of the ancestor dragon Wan Zun, he was a little pissed in his heart. This mother CKER was acting tough before him. If not for the fact that Lin Fan wanted to give this bloody act a little emotional twist, your daddy would have long slapped the bejabbers out of this guy. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun, while I am unable to compare with you, the Dragon Empress Shenwu is the pride of all women. Given the current situation, it's only natural that I have to protect her safety. If you want to kill her, you would have to cross over my dead body. Lin Fan burst out loudly as his aura skyrocketed. An extremely altruistic aura burst forth from his body. When the Dragon Empress Shenwu caught sight of Lin Fan before her right now, that resolute yet breathtaking face of hers let out a strange expression. Your Dragon Empress here has never ever required the help of anyone else. Everything that you have once done to me, your Dragon Empress will never ever forget that. Even if you're acting as such, I will never let you off. The Dragon Empress Shenwu barked out fiercely. However, there was a slight tremor in her heart. But as soon as it appeared, the Dragon Empress Shenwu immediately suppressed down it to the bottom of her heart. For the Dragon Empress Shenwu, everything that this human had once done to her was absolutely unforgivable. Those were here perfect B*OBS. And yet, they were busted by this human here. Wasn't that akin to wanting her life? At this moment, Lin Fan put on yet another serious face as he turned around to the Dragon Empress Shenwu, just leave. This time around, I'll take it as me making up for my sins. After that event back then, I had been thinking day and night. I was filled with immense remorse towards my own behavior back then. Now that I finally have the chance to meet you once more, in order to repent for the immense guilt in my heart, I have to ensure that you get to leave safely. Your Dragon Empress has never required the pity of anyone, especially someone like you. The Dragon Empress Shenwu replied coldly. HMPH. Human, since I gave you face and yet you chose not to take it, the both of you can just stay right here then. Instantly, Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun struck out. That dragon claw of his tore through the heavens and dug right into the void, aiming straight for Lin Fan. The power of Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun was extremely formidable. At this moment especially, he let loose a force so powerful that no one could resist at all. It was as though the entire world was now under the control of that dragon claw. The void was chaotic right now as that gigantic dragon claw grabbed at the ground. With a slight vibration, the entire void began to explode out as the void currents surged out all over the place. Bam! The face of the Dragon Empress Shenwu was stunned as she wanted to defend against this. However, she had suddenly realized just how puny she was in the face of this Dragon Claw's powers. You will never be able to defend against this. My powers are not something that you guys can hope to endure. Not good. The face of the Dragon Empress Shenwu changed. But just at this moment, something that caused the Dragon Empress Shenwu to feel shocked happened. Chapter 810. Stop messing around already. Chapter 810. Stop messing around already. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun could be considered as one of the older generation beings of the colossal dragon race. His might was something that did not require any questioning. No matter how strong the Dragon Empress Shenwu may be, she was definitely no match for Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun. This was especially the case for that dragon claw earlier on. While it might look plain and ordinary on the surface, the Dragon Empress Shenwu knew that the move by Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun was a secret move which was exclusive only to the colossal dragon race. Even if it were her, there was no way she could defend against it. But just at this moment, the beautiful eyes of the Dragon Empress Shenwu opened widely. It was as though she had just witnessed the most unbelievable scene in the entire world. Bam! A set of features blocked before the face of the Dragon Empress Shenwu. Those features were once the most hated face of the Dragon Empress Shenwu's entire life. But at this moment, she was stunned. On that calm face appeared a gentle, slight grin. For the Dragon Empress Shenwu, it was like she was being basked in a cool spring breeze right now. The Dragon Empress Shenwu was stunned. Her gaze then slowly lowered and she could not help but glare at the chest of this man she hated the most in her life. She jerked. It was as though his chest had been punched through by something. Hey, Lin Fan chuckled out. Those initially pearly white teeth of his were now stained red as he gave a slight, sound, and a mouthful of fresh blood came spilling out. The blood sprayed out onto the chest of the Dragon Empress Shenwu. At this moment, the Dragon Empress Shenwu was completely dumbfounded. She could not believe this scene before her eyes right now. Leave. Lin Fan gave the Dragon Empress Shenwu a massive push. And those hands of his even unknowingly pressed down on those perfectly tuned bobs of hers. But as far as the Dragon Empress Shenwu was concerned, she hadn't even noticed it at all. That was because, she was truly completely stupefied at this moment. In fact, one could even say that her face was frozen up right now. Even if one threatened her with death, she wouldn't have believed that this human would block this lethal blow for her. The Dragon Empress Shenwu was petrified right now. Both her hands shivered momentarily as she wanted to use them to hold up this man before her. However, she hesitated. Why would you? As the only peerless female fighter of the colossal dragon race, the heart of the Dragon Empress Shenwu was resolute as a rock. Her decisions were always swift and clear-cut. But, even if that were the case, this current sight before her had rendered her so shocked that she was speechless. Why do you have so much crap to say? Just hurry up and leave. Lin Fan spat out yet another few mouthfuls of blood. Each mouthful was choking. The mere sight of it was extremely frightening, bringing a feeling of terror to others. For Lin Fan, his exact purpose was to leave a lasting image in the heart of the Dragon Empress Shenwu. He would then move the other party and because of that, they would be clear of all previous debts. Lin Fan wanted to bring Chicky over to the colossal dragon race. Therefore, he naturally hoped that there could be someone who could act as a guide. And right now, his luck was practically beyond the roof for him to meet the Dragon Empress Shenwu. If he could manage to save her, wouldn't his trip down to the colossal dragon's race be an extremely smooth sailing and completely peaceful? Therefore, Lin Fan was unusually hard-working for the act this time around. If he had to puke blood, he puked blood. There was no need to think twice. Ha ha ha, Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun burst out laughing. Human, you're a human indeed. To think that you would be so stupid. Dragon Empress Shenwu, you have led a life of being cold and aloof. To think that there would be a fool who would be willing to throw his life away for you. This is quite the eye-opener. The moment Lin Fan heard these words, he put on a serious face and turned to the ancestor dragon Wan Zun. This isn't me throwing my life away. It's me trying to repent for my sins in the past as much as I possibly can. How can a dog slave of the ancient race such as yourself understand my intent? HMPH. Foolish big words. To think that you would dare to act so brazenly before your death. That's fine as well. Today, I shall let you fully comprehend the consequences of being weak and puny. N-O-V-E in .c Ohm. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun roared out as he flipped his palms around. His dragon chi surged out as a series of colossal dragons coiled out while growling. It seemed as though the entire world was filled with colossal dragons right now. You just stay there at the sides. The Dragon Empress Shen Wu snapped out of her stupor and her face changed immediately. Even though her dragon's halberd had already shattered, that fighting intent of hers was only rising by the moment. You leave. How could Lin Fan allow the Dragon Empress Shen Wu to continue acting as she wished? This should be around the time when she should be running off. The only way for him to unleash his true potential was after the Dragon Empress Shen Wu made her escape. If Lin Fan had to compare between two, adding on to the fray was nothing compared to rendering assistance in dire straits. If he were to come out and just take down Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun downright, how would that leave much of an impact in the heart of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu? Ugh, he spat out yet another mouthful of old blood. This time around, it was nothing to be scoffed at. The sight of the blood spraying was practically earth-shattering. When the might of the Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun rained down on Lin Fan's body, it didn't cause him any harm at all. In fact, even the experience points were downright pathetic. Trash. Simply way too trash. The Dragon Empress Shen Wu looked at the current state of Lin Fan and could not help but just blank out. Why? Why would you do this? I'm your enemy. Lin Fan looked at the Dragon Empress Shen Wu before shaking his head gently. No. We are not enemies. You are a beautiful woman with the most perfect body ever. But yet, I've caused such immense damage to you. That is something that the heavens shall not spare me for. As long as you can leave this place safely today, everything will all be worth it. Neither of us is a match for Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun. You had better hurry and leave. Don't let my sacrifice be for vain. Lin Fan bit down on his teeth. However, the fresh blood was still gushing out in pools. At that moment, Lin Fan could not help but stretch out his hands involuntarily. He then caressed that silky smooth chin of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu. The Dragon Empress Shen Wu was taken aback. She wanted to push him away. But, when she raised her hands ever that slightly, she came to a stop. You are a true beauty. But it's a pity I hadn't realized that in the past. Hurry up and leave now. I hope that you can forget about everything in the past. Lin Fan replied calmly. He then let loose of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu's chin. With his body shivering, he turned around to face Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun. Leave. Lin Fan bellowed out as a formidable aura erupted forth from his body, causing the void to distort. The Dragon Empress Shen Wu, who was totally unprepared, found herself suddenly sucked into the void. No, the Dragon Empress Shen Wu had never once experienced something as such. As a Dragon Empress of the colossal dragon's race, her cultivation state was a divine celestial level 10 state. She enjoyed the full glory of the entire colossal dragon race. In fact, she hadn't even been through any life-threatening situation yet, let alone having a man bear the guts to proclaim such words before her. The impact of the events today dealt a blow way too huge for the Dragon Empress Shen Wu. That single speech had the heart of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu thumping furiously. This was a feeling she had never once experienced before. Instantly, the Dragon Empress Shen Wu found herself being sucked into the voids uncontrollably. Just as the Dragon Empress Shen Wu was screaming, she caught sight of the gentle warm smile coming from the man outside of the void. That smile was something that pierced right into the heart of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu. We'll meet once more if fate permits. Lin Fan raised his hands gently as his lips quivered. The eyes of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu were stumped. Her body floated somewhere in the depths of the void as her eyes shone with an immense shock. Just as she was about to reply with something, the void sealed itself shut and nothing existed once more. How could that be? Under my sealing of this place, how is it possible for you to send her out? At this moment, Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun yelled out in disbelief. Everything had changed too quickly, so quickly that one couldn't react to it at all. This part of the world right here had been sealed up by Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun. How could someone be brought away from right beneath his eyelids? Damned human, go to hell, Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun bellowed out. His palms shook the entire world as he slapped out towards Lin Fan. Boom, the heavens and earth vibrated as that formidable power seemed to cause the world to start quaking immensely. The power of that palm was indefinitely formidable. In fact, it was even way stronger compared to his fist from earlier on. Alright, quit messing around already. At this moment, Lin Fan suddenly stood there all calm and dandy as he wiped off the blood from the sides of his mouth. He then patted his clothes clean and ignored the palm strike of Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun entirely. In fact, when that palm strike had landed on Lin Fan's body, it was even as though it was merely tickling him. There was no effect at all. Chapter 811, Fair Fight. Chapter 811, Fair Fight. Now that she was already gone, what the hell did he have to continue acting for? That act just now had Lin Fan displaying the utmost of his acting skills already. In fact, even that stance of puking out blood was something that he had mastered to perfection after conducting several experiments. Seems like this body is truly invincible after it reaches the divine celestial level 10 cultivation state. At the start, Lin Fan did not have any plans for this. But after the experimenting from earlier on, he discovered that the results were pretty decent. Anyone with eyes could tell that the fist of Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun from earlier on was extremely formidable and extraordinary. But for Lin Fan, what the FCK was that sh*t? It neither hurt nor tickled. There was no feeling at all. How could this be? When Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun caught sight of everything before him, he was completely stumped. He could not believe that that palm of his would do nothing to this human at all. This couldn't be. He was the Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun of the colossal dragon race, someone whose strength was at divine celestial level 10 cultivation state. Then what in the world was up with this human spraying out blood all over earlier on? And what in the world was happening right now? Lin Fan lowered his head and looked at his own body. He wiped away the fresh blood from his body and looked at Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun before grinning out. Hey, old slave boy, are you dumb or what? Do you really think that you're invincible and all? I was just toying with you all along. To think that you would have really believed me. Just that strength of yours. Even if yours truly were to stand here for an entire year, you wouldn't be able to whack out a single strand of hair from me. No, vel, b, in c, ohm. Lin Fan rolled his eyes and declared in disdain. He didn't put the Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun in his eyes at all. In his opinion, the strength of this Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun was pretty okay. However, if it had to go up against someone like himself, then it would be far from enough. Someone like the Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun was an existence he could take down with just a palm flip. Impossible. I refuse to believe that an ant-like human such as yourself could be this strong. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun yelled out as his hair danced in the air. Infinite Dragon's Art. Instantly, the Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun slammed out with both hands as though there were an infinite number of palm strikes that were slapping out. Every single palm was filled with an infinite amount of momentum as that tremendous dragon chi filled the entire world. A series of colossal dragons surged out and aimed at devouring the world. Highs. Lin Fan sighed, unfazed in the least bit. Old slave boy, yours truly have already told you. Even if you were to whack me for an entire year, you wouldn't be able to take down even a single strand of my hair. There was no fear in Lin Fan at all. Even while given his current strength, it might be difficult for Lin Fan to defeat the other party, but it would be a fool's dream for the other party to want to take him down as well. Bam! That mighty move punched through the void currents in time and space. However, for Lin Fan, it was nothing more than a single leaf landing on his body. Arg, how could that be? I refuse to believe it. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun was flabbergasted right now. He was entirely stumped. To think that this human here would be this sick. All the surrounding members of the colossal dragon race were equally shocked. They felt as though they had just witnessed the most inconceivable thing in this world. All right now, old slave boy, I was just toying with you just now. To think that you would have taken it for real. Gosh, if yours truly could be injured by you that easily, do you really think I'd continue chattering non-stop with you right now? Lin Fan asked with disdain. In the eyes of Lin Fan, this Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun was really pretty decent. A divine celestial level 10 cultivation state being. If he could purify this guy and have him spit out Shengyang pills day and night, that should be enough to make a few hundreds of thousands of Shengyang pills. Even though it was still far from being able to be compared with the mythical parasol tree, every little bit worked towards accumulating more. Given enough time, the amount of Shengyang pills he had would be unlimited for the picking. You seem to be having fun just now with your whackings, old slave boy. Yours truly spat out quite a bit of blood as well. I guess it's about time for me to take back some interest. However, yours truly isn't someone who would bully others overboard. Therefore, I shall not bother with taking you on personally. I'll let my underlings play with you then. Come on out, Instantly, Lin Fan released Cruel from his paradise. The moment Cruel appeared, the aura that an utmost being should have burst forth instantly into the world. The entire world started quaking immensely. Wherever Cruel stood represented an immensely irrepressible pressure for the ancestor dragon Wan Zun. This. Ancestor dragon Wan Zun looked at everything before his eyes in absolute disbelief. He held his fingers up trembling as his face turned frightfully pale. You utmost being Cruel. The moment ancestor dragon Wan Zun said out those words, his entire body leapt up as though he was in shock. That body of his shivered uncontrollably as though he was absolutely fearful towards Cruel. Hue. So, you know of him. But don't worry, yours truly is someone that is absolutely fair to all of my opponents. Even though you guys are weak, yours truly will definitely take out absolute strength and give you guys a fair fight. Lin Fan smiled calmly while flicking out his fingers, causing the entire void to tremble with it. Yet another figure bolted out of the void. Roar. This booming voice reverberated out through the entire world. The moment the Ancient One stepped foot into the Ancient Saint world, he felt the same familiar feeling once more. The powers that were once floating around rampantly in the void gathered within him once more. I, the Ancient One, am back. When the figure of the Ancient One stood tall between the world, the chains on his body slammed against one another and clanged out loudly. Even a single motion of his finger brought forth an immense amount of pressure to them. When Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun felt the horrifying aura of the Ancient One, his entire body stumbled back furiously. In fact, those legs of his began to tremble intensely right now. Ancient One. When Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun heard this name, his mind started reeling as though he was recalling something of the distant past. Back then, Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun was just a tiny little puny colossal dragon at that time. You utmost being of the ancient race. The Ancient One WHO had disappeared for 10,000 years. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun bellowed out in fear as though he had been scared silly. That mighty disposition of a ruler he had earlier on had evaporated entirely by now. The only thing that occupied his heart right now was nothing but fear. Impossible. The Ancient One had disappeared for 10,000 years now and was killed by the human race. How can he possibly still be alive? Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun's face had drained of all color by now as he yelped out wildly, evidently in disbelief. Ancient One, to think that an old slave boy would still remember you after you disappeared for 10,000 years. Lin Fan chuckled out before counting the number of people present. That's not enough. Seems like you've got one more person than I do here. I've got to get another underling out. Big ancient demon, come on out. At that moment, a gigantic demon city appeared. Above that demon city, a bright light flashed out and shone out across the world. A boundless amount of demonic chi surged through that demon city. Roar. The figure of the big ancient demon was incomparably large. Those purple eyes of his were even like an endless abyss. Demon Emperor. Demon Emperor. When the Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun caught sight of this figure, his face was even paler than it could have been. Cruel. Ancient One. Demon Emperor. This was especially the case for the Ancient One and the Demon Emperor. They were practically the strongest existences in the ancient saint world back then. Even if it were an utmost being who met the Demon Emperor, he would be faced with an immense headache. How in the world could the human tame all of them? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Alright, 4 on 4. This is what I call a fair fight. Lin Fan chuckled out, feeling extremely joyful right now. Let's go. Alright, remember now, I only want them whacked half to death. Don't cripple them at all costs. Lin Fan ordered. Boom. Instantly, the void vibrated as the bunch of wild wolves bolted out toward these helpless sheep. Stop. Stop that now. I'm willing to submit. I'll submit to you. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun no longer had any bit of dignity left. He was scared so badly that even his guts had all spilled out, wailing while begging tragically. Chapter 812. This is a gang wallop. Chapter 812. This is a gang wallop. Xing. When Dragon Empress Shen Wu got out of the void, she was silent momentarily. And then, as though something important had just struck her, she bolted off into the distance. How could things have turned out as such? At this moment, the Dragon Empress Shen Wu's mind was in a mess right now. What in the world was going on with her? Why would she have such feelings? Once upon a time, the Dragon Empress Shen Wu was just a female of the colossal dragon race that was belittled by everyone. She was weak and wasn't given any recognition at all. Growing up in that environment of being belittled, the Dragon Empress Shen Wu's heart was firmer than any other being of the colossal dragon race. At the same time, she also turned colder and more aloof. If anyone weren't happy, fight then. As long as they would dare to touch her, she would smite down their entire races. That was the perfect description of the Dragon Empress Shenwu. By the time she had grown stronger, there was no colossal dragon who would dare to act brazenly before her. Every single colossal dragon that caught sight of the Dragon Empress Shenwu carried a look of respect on their faces. But at this moment, the Dragon Empress Shenwu was discovering that something seemed to have invaded that heart of hers. It was something that was extremely conflicting with the character she once had in the past. That's just a mere human. Furthermore, he's my enemy. How could I possibly entertain such thoughts? The Dragon Empress Shenwu struggled within her heart. However, each time she closed her eyes, the only thing that appeared was that final smile that appeared before the void closed up. That smile was like a sharp blade that pierced its way straight into the heart of the Dragon Empress Shenwu. At this moment, the speed of the Dragon Empress Shenwu was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, she was thousands of miles away. The entire void was even showing signs of collapse due to the intense speed of the Dragon Empress Shenwu. After God knows how long, far in the distance, an immense amount of dragon chi surged right into the heavens. There were countless colossal dragons that were dancing in this dragon chi. The scene was exuberant and vast. This was the base of the colossal dragon race. When a colossal dragon caught sight of the Dragon Empress Shenwu, he came forth and greeted her. Dragon Empress, get lost. The Dragon Empress Shenwu roared out before pushing this colossal dragon away instantly. The colossal dragon who was pushed away was stunned for a moment, unable to comprehend what was going on as he wondered what was up with the Dragon Empress. Could something have happened for her to be in such an irritable mood? Within the base, what's wrong with the Dragon Empress today? Didn't she head out with Ancestor Dragon Wanzun? Seems like something must have happened. Let us try to not speak about it. Otherwise, if we were overheard, things would definitely be bad for us. The members of the colossal dragon race whispered softly. When the Dragon Empress Shenwu crossed through the skies above them, all of them shut up. Before a gigantic dragon tower, the Dragon Empress Shenwu landed from the sky ferociously. She kneeled down on the ground with one knee and said in a pressing tone. God of the Dragon Ancestor, Ancestor Dragon Wanzun has betrayed us. There was someone who stood in to rescue me and is in deep peril right now. I implore for the 12 dragon gods to step forth and help me with rescuing that human. All of a sudden, an alarmed voice rang forth from the gigantic and tall dragon tower. What did you just say? Ancestor Dragon Wanzun has defected over to the ancient race. I implore the god of the dragon ancestor to command the 12 dragon gods to follow me out so that we can suppress the Ancestor Dragon Wanzun. The Dragon Empress Shenwu lowered her head as she pleaded. For some unknown reason, she seemed to be extremely anxious about the well-being of that human right now. Within the colossal dragon race, Ancestor Dragon Wanzun was one of the strongest there was. Even with the 12 dragon gods, there was no absolute confidence to defeat him. But, there should be a good chance of saving that human out of his hands. Shenwu, everything you said is real. Yes, it is. Absolutely. Time is ticking right now. Please give me an answer, God of the Dragon Ancestor. The Dragon Empress Shenwu pressed on anxiously. The strength of Ancestor Dragon Wanzun is not to be underestimated. Even the 12 dragon gods may not be enough to take him down. We have to think this through at length. No, time is pressing right now. Otherwise, that human is not going to be able to hold out for much longer. For some unknown reason, the Dragon Empress Shenwu had suddenly gained the courage to talk back against the god of the dragon ancestor. And the moment she set out with such words, the Dragon Empress Shenwu snapped back to her senses. Shenwu, seems like you're really gutsy now To think that you would dare to refute the words of the great god of the dragon ancestor. All of a sudden, harsh voices boomed out from all over the void. No, I wouldn't. The heart of the Dragon Empress Shenwu was worried right now, not knowing what she should do. You guys, head with her and take a look. At this moment, the voice of the god of the dragon ancestor boomed out. The moment the Dragon Empress Shenwu heard this, she felt her heart leap with a slight joy. Thank you, god of the dragon ancestor. She hadn't expected that the god of the Drago ancestor would ask the ancestor dragon Honghuang to follow her. This was an existence even greater than the 12 dragon gods. At Lin Fan's area right now, the situation was pretty intense. With two utmost beings taking one side, the atmosphere was a little frightening. The few colossal dragons around the Ancestor Dragon Wanzun were now walloped so badly that their knees were wobbling. While their cultivation states might be divine celestial level 9 state, in front of the two utmost beings, they were nothing but ants. Spare us. We're willing to bow down. We were all forced by Wan Zun. We don't want to serve the ancient race. ... Looking at these three colossal dragons, Lin Fan thought for a moment. While the strength of divine celestial level 9 state powerful beings was pretty decent, Lin Fan was quite a bit of distance away from turning into a divine celestial level 10 state being. Seemed like he had to top up some experience points now. Boom! Lin Fan moved out instantly as he gripped his fingers tightly together, taking on the shape of a fist. Tossing his hand out, it was like a gigantic hammer that was pummeling down from the heavens, caging the three colossal dragons within. And no, the moment the three colossal dragons saw this, they yelped out in horror. They had suddenly realized that under the might of this incredible power, the powers within their bodies could not be unleashed at all. Boom! The three colossal dragons were squished by Lin Fan into scraps instantly. To think that my strength would be this strong right now. A single punch and I can kill all three of them. Not bad, not bad. Seeing this move of his, Lin Fan was extremely pleased. It wasn't that Lin Fan did not want to keep them alive. It was just that their strength is somewhat lacking now. They weren't even divine celestial level 10 state beings. What fart use could they be of? Ding! Congratulations on killing divine celestial level 9 state colossal dragon race being. Ding! Experience points plus. Each time Lin Fan killed someone, he would forcefully snatch away everything from them. Their blood, essence, spirit, powers, universal elixir, etc. Anything that was useful was all sucked in by Lin Fan instantly. And right now, Lin Fan's paradise was already incomparably strong. His universal elixir had long been fused within his paradise as well, and had turned into a raging sun that was shining a light in every single part of the paradise. It was churning endlessly, emitting a tremendous energy all the time. When Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun saw how his three underlings were killed by a single fist of this guy, he was completely dumbfounded. Alright, now that I'm done with the ants, let us gang whack him. Even though the Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun's strength might be formidable, for the utmost beings, killing him was something as simple as squishing an ant. However, Lin Fan loved to gang up and FCK them up. Whether or not the other party liked it, it was something that was certain to happen. Traitor Wan Zun, here comes yours truly. The moment Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun caught sight of this, his heart was filled with despair. However, he wanted to fight with the last bit of strength he had. Damn it, since you guys refuse to give me a chance to live, even if I die, I'll definitely not let you guys have an easy time. Arg! At this moment, a loud roar boomed out as the Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun used up all his powers. Hee, Lin Fan sniggered while he took out a large saber from his storage. The moment this saber appeared, the heart of Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun shivered. That saber gave off a bone-chilling aura. Dragon Slayer Saber, specializes in chopping down colossal dragons. Rush, Cruel, Ancient One, and the big ancient demon rushed forth and clustered around Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun. Every single punch hit its mark as they whacked out with immense violence. They whacked the Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun so badly he was crying out for mercy with every single hit. Blood-bursting Fist of the North Star. BOBS Bursting Fist of the North Star. True Origins Crushing Kick. Arg HHHHHHHHHHHHH. At that moment, a series of tragic wails rang out one after another. The wails were extremely sorrowful to even take in one's ears. In fact, just by listening, one could almost feel their hearts breaking. November LBJNN. Great Buddha's light of purification. Purify, purify. And no, the purification is not working. Seems like he's not walloped bad enough. Continue whacking him. Chapter 813, 1 million Shenyang pills per day. Chapter 813, 1 million Shenyang pills per day. And no more please. Right now, Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun was truly bowing down. Let aside the fact that his face was entirely bruised beyond recognition, he did not even have the chance to retaliate at all. To think that as a divine celestial level 10 state being, he would be whacked up by a group such that he couldn't even raise a single finger in return. And the thing that had Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun even more infuriated was the fact that the human would appear from time to time like a phantom and just land some random punch. While the punch didn't look all that imposing, the moment it landed on his body, blood would spray out all over the place, leaving him in an extremely tragic state. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun truly felt that he must have the worst luck accumulated over 8 lifetimes right now. To think that he would meet someone this difficult to deal with. And why in the world did this human have 2 utmost beings under his control along with the Demon Emperor? A strength as such was just heaven-defying. That wasn't even talking about the group assault that was going on right now. Even a single one of these two utmost beings wasn't someone that he could even try fighting against at all. Looking at the state Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun was in right now, Lin Fan could not help but chuckle out. Slinging the Dragon Slayer saber on his shoulders, he looked even more imposing. The current state should be about enough now. The chance of a successful purification should be pretty high at this point. Instantly, Lin Fan was shrouded by a ball of Buddha light. Within this Buddha light, thousands of Buddhas danced around as though this was a gigantic world of Buddhas right here. Every single Buddha chanted a scripture of their own. As these scriptures revolved out, they were converted into a stream of purification power in its purest form, coiling out toward Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun. Why you're trying to purify me? When he sensed this immense power of purification, the face of Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun lost all its color. That swollen, menacing face of his was crumpled so badly it was almost folding into itself. That's right, come convert under yours truly and I shall guarantee that all will be fine for you. Lin Fan chuckled out. The strength of this Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun was decent indeed. If he could have this guy spitting out Shenyang pills for him, that would be a pretty decent option for sure. Within the entire world, there were quite a number of divine celestial level 10 state powerful beings. However, there were only those few who could obtain the eternal God seat. If he could reform a few of these powerful beings, he wouldn't have to have a headache over Shenyang pills in the future any longer. Damn it, I am Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun. I'll definitely not have you purify me. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun bellowed out furiously. He knew the consequences of being purified. He would lose his sense of self entirely, and end up as a slave for this human for all of eternity. There wouldn't be any chance for him to come back at all even in the future. Purify, Lin Fan pointed out with his finger. The power of purification immediately converged onto a single spot and pierced through the void, caging Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun within. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun's face changed starkly. He felt as though his inner heart was being eaten up by a power of purification. And no, Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun screamed out with a hoarse voice, using all his powers to hold on against this power of purification. Because of that, the expression on his face changed endlessly. At times it was extremely compassionate, while at others, it was malevolent as ever. Damn it, I will definitely not allow anyone to purify me. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun howled out as his body jerked momentarily. He returned to his true form instantly as that hundreds of thousand feet long colossal dragon roared out in the sky. Ding, purification failure. Seems like you still can resist. That means the group whack isn't enough just yet, Lin Fan hadn't expected that Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun would still be able to resist even at this stage. He felt a little displeased instantly. This guy wasn't giving him any face at all. Go, continue and whack him up. Lin Fan waved his hands and the group assault ensued once more. All whack. As punches rained on that massive body of Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun, it caused the scales on the true body of Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun to break off all over, while fresh blood sprayed out as well. Ancient One, Cruel, and the Demon Emperor were all fast, accurate, and savage. If they didn't obey Lin Fan's words, the only thing that awaited them was death as well. Arg, that body of Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun, which was akin to the Great Wall of China, squirmed around intensely. A series of tremendous powers gushed right into his body, causing him to wail out loudly. When had the Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun ever encountered situations as such? This was a complete scene of abuse right now. You bunch of B***stards. You've gone overboard with the bullying. I'll fight with you guys with all I have. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun was whacked so badly that his temper was whacked out of him right now. He was the goddamned Ancestor Dragon of the colossal dragon race. But now that he was being treated as such, what else could he do? A devastating dragon chi erupted forth from the body of Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun. This fella is trying to self-destruct. Lin Fan hadn't expected that Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun would attempt to self-destruct. This was something that had him quite exasperated. Lin Fan's eyes shone with a glint. All of a sudden, he spotted a small little bump that was poking out of the body of this gigantic colossal dragon at some place. It seemed like it was an important place. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun, do you think that you're the Samsung race and can self-destruct as and when you like? Receive the strongest kick of yours truly. This single kick of Lin Fan looked extremely plain and simple. However, it was curved to an angle. True Origin's crushing kick. Bam! There was no mistake with his kick as he landed squarely on that part of the Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun's body which was poking out. The river surged and crashed over at this moment as the body of Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun disturbed the entire world. An irrepressible surge of pain found its way shooting right into his heart. An extremely sorrowful cry rang out from the mouth of Ancestor Dragon Wanzun. At this moment, Ancestor Dragon Wanzun could be considered as the most pitiful living being in the universe right now. That was because he was being abused by multiple powerful beings. In fact, it was so bad that he couldn't even have a chance to fight back at all. How tragic was that? Great Buddha's light of purification. Lin Fan chanted out the scriptures as he tried the purification once more. The Buddha light shone out in all directions and the power of purification encompassed the entire world. While the great Buddha's light of purification was strong and could purify any living being in this world, in case of a powerful being such as Ancestor Dragon Wanzun, he had to whack this guy half to death first. The probability of success is the highest when the other party could hardly find any meaning in life any longer. At this moment, the mental state of Ancestor Dragon Wanzun seemed to be undergoing some changes. That initially menacing face of his changed continuously. It was benevolent at times yet compassionate at others. It was as though any single bit of evil intent within his heart was being erased entirely at this moment. No, Ancestor Dragon Wanzun wanted to make a final attempt in the face of death. However, he could feel that at this moment, his heart was almost no longer his to control. Arg hhhhhhhhhhhh. Ding, purification success. Ha 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 ha, Lin Fan burst out laughing. After all the hard work in many different aspects, he had finally converted Ancestor Dragon Wanzun. At this moment, Ancestor Dragon Wanzun floated gently in the void before Lin Fan. His palms were placed together as he chanted out with a Buddhist quote. From now on forth, you shall stay in the paradise of yours truly and just focus on churning out Shengyang pills. With the mythical parasol tree and Ancestor Dragon Wanzun, Lin Fan could gain a supply of 1 million Shengyang pills daily. 10 days would make 10 million, and 100 days would make 100 million. As long as he had enough time, he would definitely gain a steady supply. Lin Fan reaped in all the valuables from the body of Ancestor Dragon Wanzun instantly. Ding, congratulations on obtaining storage ring. Ding, congratulations on obtaining supreme graded Dao weapon, 8 dragon pagodas. Ding, congratulations on obtaining skill, solo dragon. ... Lin Fan did not have that much of an interest in the Dao weapon and the skill. However, what was contained within the storage ring did matter quite a bit to him. After counting properly for a moment, Lin Fan let out a smile. The colossal dragon race was not the colossal dragon race for nothing. The stash within was just explosive. Just the Shengyang pills possessed by Ancestor Dragon Wanzun alone amounted to the billions. This was extremely rich in Lin Fan's eyes. After settling Ancestor Dragon Wanzun, Lin Fan kept the Ancient One and the others into his paradise and headed straight for the base of the colossal dragons. Chapter 814, This performance is too much. Chapter 814, This performance is too much. Within the void, Chicky, don't say that old bro doesn't take care of you. Here are some pills that I've just cleanly robbed over. You can have them all. Diving into the void, Lin Fan headed for the base of the colossal dragon race. Within the storage ring of Ancestor Dragon Wanzun, he found quite a number of pills. However, these pills wouldn't do much for Lin Fan. Even if he were to pop them down, they wouldn't amount to any significant experience points. But for Chicky, these pills were good stuff. He popped them down with gusto. Cuck, cuck, Chicky then laid there carefreely. After taking a look at the pills that were laid out before him, he popped them down in exhilaration. Bloody chicken, don't just think about popping pills day and night. Later on, when we reach the base of the colossal dragon race, if you sense that you have any particularly strong connection of your bloodline with someone, you had better run over and hug their thighs while acting as pitifully as you can. You've got that. Lin Fan declared with an extremely serious expression. Whether or not this would end up in a success depended entirely on Chicky. Even though he had some slight enmity with the colossal dragon race, these were all things of the past now. Furthermore, he didn't even kill that 10th prince and whatnot. All he did was convert him over. Cuck-cuckoo, Chicky nodded his head and crowed out before continuing to pop down pills. As for those 3 twisted chicklings of his, they were extremely happy as well. The feeling of popping pills was simply the best ever. Lin Fan could feel a surge of energy gathering within the body of Chicky. This was the pill of Ancestor Dragon Wanzun. However, there was something that bugged Lin Fan. Even after Chicky and his 3 little twisted chicklings had popped down so many pills, there weren't any signs of them exploding at all. It was as though whether they popped pills or not made no difference at all. Chicky, you've got to hold it back a little. Don't pop down too much, or you might just blow up. Lin Fan warned Chicky out of concern. Chicky tossed Lin Fan one casual side glance. The expression that was given off by Chicky did not seem quite right to Lin Fan. It was as though he was saying, "You don't have to bother. I'm having fun popping." At this moment, Lin Fan was enraged. This Chicky's wings were all tough and all now, To think that he would dare to act before yours truly. But, just as Lin Fan was about to discipline Chicky, he felt several powerful auras approaching rapidly from up ahead. Holy FCK, to think that they would turn back to come look for yours truly. But yours truly is really safe now. No, I've got to act a little more tragic. The worse I look, the more brownie points I'll earn. In fact, I may even get a couple of sympathy points along with it. Chicky, stop popping now. Hurry up and get back inside the paradise. Lin Fan did not care whether Chicky agreed to it or not as he tossed the ladder along with his 3 twisted chicklings into the paradise. Lin Fan then punched himself furiously a couple of times, causing him to puke out 3 liters of blood. Using his hands to rub a little, he smeared blood over his face and clothing. He then churned the powers within his body, causing his skin to tear up. Berserk. Lin Fan even controlled his universal elixir and caused the powers within his body to go entire berserk. He was at a state where he could practically explode at any moment. After he was done busying, Lin Fan checked out his current status and nodded his head in satisfaction. All done. The state he was in right now looked absolutely miserable. Lin Fan was extremely pleased with his creation right now. However, in order to improve on the results, he even tore his clothes up to tatters. Right now, he looked as though he had just been through one hell of a wild battle. Time to start acting, Lin Fan counted down in his heart. That carefree and relaxed expression of his then turned extremely pale as his body stumbled back and forth unsteadily while he bumped left and right in the void. And each time he bumped into the void, he would spit out a mouthful of blood as well. Shen Wu, there's someone up ahead. Under the orders of the god of the dragon Ancestor Dragon Hong Huang followed the Dragon Empress Shen Wu along for the rescue expedition. All of a sudden, they discovered a lone figure wobbling unsteadily up ahead, as though he could fall over at any moment. It's him. When the Dragon Empress Shen Wu caught sight of that figure, her heart skipped a beat and started palpitating faster. Lin Fan supported that broken body of his and looked up ahead. He then groaned out in a tragic cry before tilting forward in a feeble manner and dropping down from the void onto the ground below. When Dragon Empress Shen Wu caught sight of this, her heart tightened up as she could not help but increase her speed. She turned into a streak of light and bolted forth to catch Lin Fan instantly. This fragrance, it's really sweet. At this moment, Lin Fan was hugged within the tight embrace of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu. Actually, he was wondering about how a man who would eventually reign above the rest of the world could possibly be cuddled in the embrace of a woman. But remembering that this was all an act, he naturally got used to it. November LBJNN. Feeling that he was in the warm embrace of someone, Lin Fan opened his eyes with immense struggle. Those lifeless eyes of his immediately lit up with a bright glint in them. The stained pearly whites of his were ever redder at this moment. It's you. Lin Fan's voice was really soft right now. However, there was an implied meaning of relief and happiness within. Lin Fan turned his head around and spat out yet another mouthful of old blood on the chest of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu. As for how many times the chest of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu had been sprayed by Lin Fan's blood, he had long forgotten about it. However, after spitting out blood this time around, he pretended to faint over instantly. What's wrong with you? Looking at the human in her embrace, the Dragon Empress Shen Wu's aura was in a huge mess right now. It was as though a ferocious beast was trying to tear out of her body. I'll take a look. Ancestor Dragon Hong Huang stood forth and grabbed onto Lin Fan's arm. He sent a strain of his consciousness into Lin Fan's body, and his brows couldn't help but furrow. Ancestor Dragon, what's wrong with him? The Dragon Empress Shen Wu acted like she was composed. However, she could not hide the worry that brewed in her eyes. This guy was obviously her enemy. But, Dragon Empress Shen Wu could not help but feel as though something was shaking up in her heart. This was a mysterious feeling. It's really severe. His powers are running rampant and his universal elixir is gradually shattering apart. The situation does not seem too favorable. Ancestor Dragon Hong Huang replied. I implore the Ancestor Dragon to render his assistance. I am indebted to this human and I, Shen Wu, do not wish to owe anyone favors. Dragon Empress Shen Wu requested hurriedly as she came up with a random reason anyhow. Ancestor Dragon Hong Huang looked at Dragon Empress Shen Wu and shook his head. There's an aura of the Ancestor Dragon that is stuck within his body. Even if it's me, I have no way of removing that. I'm afraid this will require the god of the Ancestor Dragons to intervene. But even if this aura is removed, that almost crumbling universal elixir of his will be hard to repair. The brows of the Dragon Empress Shenwu furrowed as she bolted straight for the base of the colossal dragons. Laying in the warm embrace of the Dragon Empress Shenwu, Lin Fan could hear that the pitter-patter of her heartbeat. However, he could not help but think that there was something wrong about this. The main purpose of the performance this time around was to rub off some good vibes with the colossal dragon race. He didn't think of anything more than that. But, just at this moment, something struck Lin Fan. He was someone who was so handsome and suave with so much charisma. And that expression just now was filled with overflowing emotions. Even though the Dragon Empress Shenwu was a peerless powerful being of the colossal dragon race who would kill without batting an eyelid, she was still a chick who hadn't had any experience in the field of love. That performance by yours truly earlier on couldn't have attracted the Dragon Empress Shenwu just like that, right? We don't know that for certain yet. Perhaps I'm just overthinking things. Time to wait and see how things progress. Had I known that this would be the case, I wouldn't have gone through all the troubles then. I would have just acted as though I had some slight bit of injuries and that would be that. Gosh. Chapter 815, I'll owe you nothing. Chapter 815, I'll owe you nothing. A few streaks of light descended from the void. Upon entering the base of the colossal dragon race, Lin Fan could immediately feel the dragon chi that was dispersed in the entire sky. He came before a gigantic dragon tower, and could sense an extraordinary dragon chi emanating out from within. This was extremely horrifying, not something that one could possibly imagine. God of the dragon ancestors, please save this human. Dragon Empress Shenwu knelt down on one knee and begged. Suddenly, Lin Fan felt as though his body was being controlled by an unknown power. This power was extremely strong. Given Lin Fan's current strength, he truly couldn't kill the opponent just yet. But, if the other party wanted him dead, that would be impossible as well. However, in Lin Fan's opinion, given this fella's strength, he would be able to give the utmost beings a run for their money. This was extremely terrifying. This is the human that you wished to rescue out of the hands of Wan Zun. A boundless voice boomed out. Even just speaking out alone caused an immense amount of dragon chi to spill out. Yes, instantly, a source of energy surged into Lin Fan's body. Immediately, Lin Fan let loose of his self-consciousness and was just swimming around freely. The aura of ancestor dragon Wan Zun that he had intentionally left within his body was purged out instantly. However, this surge of energy coiled one round around that seemingly crumbling universal elixir of his before retreating. I've already purged the aura of Wan Zun from within his body. As for that universal elixir, there's nothing I can do to repair that. The god of the dragon ancestor replied. How could this be? The face of Dragon Empress Shenwu changed. If his universal elixir couldn't be repaired, that would mean that he would be nothing more than a disabled man. Within the ancient saint world, what use could a disabled man do? This was undoubtedly a fate worse than death. God of the dragon ancestor, don't we have a secret technique within the race that's especially used for mending universal elixirs? Dragon Empress Shenwu asked hurriedly. And the moment these words came out of the mouth of Dragon Empress Shenwu, the entire area fell silent. Shenwu, you know about that secret technique. Are you sure you've thought this through? The voice of the god of the ancestor dragon permeated out once more. Aye. Dragon Empress Shenwu hesitated for a moment. Ancestor dragon Hong Huang at the sides tried persuading her out of it. Shenwu, don't be rash now. This is just a human and you are the dragon empress of the colossal dragon's race. If you wish to repair his universal elixir, you should know of the consequences you must bear. It's not worth it, Ancestor Dragon Hong Huang said. This technique for mending one's universal elixir was something that only the colossal dragons possessed. However, there was a high requirement for it. The universal elixir was something as vast as a world itself. It required the chi of yin and yang. If one wanted to mend the universal elixir, not only did they have to connect their bodies and minds, the other party would have to pay an extreme price for it. They would lose half of their cultivation state. For anyone out there, this was a price that was way too unbearable. This was especially the case for someone of a divine celestial level 10 cultivation state. If they were to lose a good half of it, it would undoubtedly be a task taller than the heavens to reach their pinnacle state once more. In fact, it was practically impossible. Dragon Empress Shenwu looked at Lin Fan as her mind wavered. That peerlessly beautiful face of hers let out a resolute look. God of the dragon ancestor, please impart on me that secret technique. I, Shenwu, will never be indebted to anyone. If not for the fact that he had saved me, Shenwu wouldn't be alive at this very moment. Dragon Empress Shenwu replied firmly. Shenwu, you've considered this through. God of the dragon ancestor, Shenwu has thought it through long and hard. Dragon Empress Shenwu nodded her head seriously. So be it then, our colossal dragon race will never ever owe anyone any favors. Instantly, a sparkling gleam of light shone out from the dragon tower and entered the mind of the dragon Empress Shenwu. No, at this moment, a figure appeared all of a sudden. This human has killed my child. How can we save him? The figure who had appeared was a middle-aged man. The aura of this man was thick. However, he was still in existence beneath the god of the ancestor dragons. When Dragon Empress Shenwu saw who it was that had arrived, her heart skipped a beat. She knew that the 10th prince was defeated by this human. However, she did not mention it at all. But, to think that the 10th prince's father would appear right now. What's going on here? The voice of the god of the ancestor dragons boomed out of the dragon tower. Shenwu, you were the one who told me of the facts to my face back then. Right now, before the god of the ancestor dragons, please say it as it is. Dragon god Wan Sheng set out. When he looked at Lin Fan, his eyes were especially filled with a burning rage. Lin Fan, who was fainted, at this moment, felt his nuts hurting. Bloody hell, must there be so many mother-seeking problems? The 10th prince wasn't dead at all. He was just tamed by him. But at this moment, Lin Fan could not wake up either. If he were to do so, things wouldn't seem right at all. FCK my life. One must truly never tell lies. Once you start with a single lie, it's impossible to come back full circle without telling more. Lin Fan was speechless right now as he could only wait patiently. Dragon Empress Shenwu lowered her head and nodded silently, yes. The 10th prince was defeated by this human. However, the 10th prince isn't dead. God of the dragon ancestors, you heard that. This human here took down my child. How can we possibly save him? Shenwu, you had better not continue down your path of wrongdoings. Dragon God Wan Sheng blasted out. Dragon Empress Shenwu then looked straight at Dragon God Wan Sheng, that is your affair. However, this human has saved me. I, Shenwu, must definitely repay this favor. After he is awakened I'm done with my debt, whatever you wish to do to him shall be your prerogative, and will no longer have anything to do with me. Please have mercy, God of the dragon ancestors. Dragon Empress Shenwu continued. Wan Sheng, since the 10th prince isn't dead, he must naturally be in the hands of this human. How about you just let Shenwu repay her debts and once he awakens, you can then have him pay you an explanation. The god of the dragon ancestors spoke up. We shall follow the wishes of the god of the dragon ancestors. Without saying anything more, Dragon God Wan Sheng tossed his robes and left the place. All of you can head back. At this moment, Lin Fan was brought by Dragon Empress Shenwu to her imperial palace. As someone with a highly respected position within the colossal dragon's race, Dragon Empress Shenwu naturally had her own imperial palace. Lin Fan was placed lying on a gigantic bed. However, his consciousness had long scanned through the entire base of the colossal dragon race. And right now, the thing that gave Lin Fan the biggest headache was what in the world he should do right now. He must have been FCKED in the head, to be honest. Of all things, he had to choose to break his universal elixir. And because of that, he had caused this huge amount of ruckus right now. He did not even know what the hell was up with this secret technique. Dragon Empress Shenwu looked at Lin Fan who was lying on the bed. She sighed slightly out of nowhere. You've saved my life. I will definitely repay you the favor. Dragon God Wan Sheng will definitely not let you off this easily either. As such, I will escort you out personally after I'm done. With that, you and I shall be done with everything, and from then forth, I, Shenwu, will no longer owe you anything. At this moment, Lin Fan felt an urge to cry out. Just what in the world happened to lead the situation down to this point? Why the hell did he have to act as though his universal elixir was shattered? If he had just easily knocked himself over, he could have waited till he was awake and just released the 10th prince. By then, there wouldn't be any misunderstandings anymore. Wasn't everything that yours truly did all for the sake of rubbing some good vibes with the colossal dragon's race? And by then, after seeking out the daddy of Chicky, he could then ask for a lion's sum and get some Shenyang pills in his hands, that was all. FCKED up. This had really gotten way too FCKED up. And just at this moment, Dragon Empress Shenwu began to mumble to herself once more. When Lin Fan heard these words, he could not help but freeze up. She was not thinking about whipping his corpse, right? However, it's really hard for me to swallow down what you did to me in the past. At that moment, Lin Fan suddenly felt a cold breeze creep past his chest. Ding, ding, Holy FCK. Lin Fan had suddenly realized that the 2 raisins on his chest were suddenly exposed to the open air. HMPH, that makes me feel much better. Wielding her dragon's halberd, Dragon Empress Shen Wu dug out 2 holes on the front of Lin Fan's clothes. She then heaved out a sigh of relief. This helped her feel much better in her heart. Lin Fan was practically going to explode right now. Wasn't this one hell of a nasty prank? Chapter 816. How could you guys act as such? Chapter 816. How could you guys act as such? On that luxurious bed, Lin Fan had been lying there for quite some time now. Only, he did not know where Dragon Empress Shen Wu had run off to. Initially, Lin Fan could have released the 10th prince at this moment and just have him go looking for his daddy. However, something real messed up happened. After the Dragon Empress Shen Wu left, she had actually gathered a bunch of maids to surround and take care of him. This is the human that Dragon Empress Shen Wu saved. The bunch of maids surrounding Lin Fan began to chatter and gossip. These maids were all members of the colossal dragon race. However, because they were females, they did not have a high standing within the colossal dragon race. But thanks to an existence such as the Dragon Empress Shen Wu, the position of women in the colossal dragon race improved gradually as well. After all, who was to say that women weren't equal to men now with everything that she had proven herself with? Dragon Empress Shen Wu was their role model. Ancestor Dragon Wan Zun was extremely strong. But, to think that this human would be able to save Dragon Empress Shen Wu from his grasp. He must be quite something then. Look at that, there are no clothes on the chest area of this human. That's right, should we give it a feel? Since the great Dragon Empress isn't around, we should sneakily cop some feels in. There shouldn't be any issue. At this moment, Lin Fan, who was lying there, suddenly felt that something was off. This bunch of little girls that were surrounding him. What in the world were they trying to do? Girls, check it out. I saw that little raisin shiver for a little. For real, how come I didn't see that? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, a single finger poked out and touched that little raisin of Lin Fan. Holy FCK. Lin Fan was astonished. These girls were FC King taking liberties with him. To think that this bunch of brats would take the chance when Shen Wu wasn't around to toy with his little buns. Could they still be considered righteous dragons doing something as such? Bear with it, he must absolutely bear with it. This isn't fun, man, not fun at all. The moment Lin Fan heard these words, he heaved out a sigh of relief. That's right, that's the way, since it's not fun, then you should just stop playing with it. But at the very next second, Lin Fan suddenly felt as though something big was about to happen. Girls, say, do you girls think that it's fun flicking there? I've got no idea. However, when I saw that Lord Dragon God Du Huang had a son, he was always flicking that area of his son every day as well. Looks pretty fun to me. That's right, and you can even pull and extend it. I don't think this is such a great idea, right? If we were to be spotted by the Great Dragon Empress, we would definitely be punished. It's alright, the Great Dragon Empress isn't even around right now. And furthermore, this human couldn't be any more knocked out. Let's just give it some flicks here and there. We would definitely not be noticed. Yes, everyone, let's flick together. It'll definitely be fun. Holy FCK. At this moment, Lin Fan was starting to panic. This was a completely FCKED up situation. Where in the world did these maids spout out from? Why in the world could they do something as shameless as this? If he were to be flicked by these maids, how in the world was he going to show his face in the future? I'll take the first flick. At this moment, Lin Fan felt a feeling of impending danger surge up into his mind. His heart was struggling intently as well. What should he do? He mustn't allow these maids to succeed. Based on the way plans would play out, Shen Wu should appear at this moment. However, to Lin Fan's nuts-hurting disappointment, this Dragon Empress Shen Wu wasn't appearing at all. What in the world should he do? I'm so nervous. When Lin Fan heard the voice of this maid at this moment, he felt his heart thumping furiously. He could clearly sense the vile hands of this woman hovering over the area of his groin. And it was descending ever so slowly as though she could touch it at any moment. No, Lin Fan wailed out in his heart. Shen Wu, bloody hell, and come faster. Otherwise, yours truly could only fight it out with them. At this moment, those tender, gentle hands of hers were getting ever closer, ever closer. They were barely a hair's breadth away from Lin Fan's crotch right now. Highs, this was a perfectly thought-out plan from the start. To think that it would be ruined by these maids. Lin Fan eventually sighed out in his heart and jerked his eyes open. What are you guys doing? Instantly, the entire Imperial Palace fell silent. What followed was a series of intense shrieks. Ah, no, vel, b, in dot c, ohm. Initially, these maids had thought that this human was still in a coma. To think that he would awaken all of a sudden. At this final juncture, Lin Fan had managed to defend his precious dignity. That little brother of his was so close to being flicked around by these maids mercilessly. What should I do? How should I handle it later? When Lin Fan looked at those maids who were running out, he could not help but feel like he was in a spot right now. How could you? At this moment, a long streak of light bolted forth from a distance. Dragon Empress Shenwu looked at Lin Fan in disbelief as though she hadn't come to terms with reality just yet. In the eyes of Dragon Empress Shenwu, this was absolutely impossible. To think that he could awaken when his universal elixir was on the brink of crumbling. And by the looks of it, it didn't seem like there was anything off with him. Lin Fan put on a straight face as his mind whirled intensely. He came up with yet another good plan. I bear a secret technique within my body. Even though my universal elixir is on the brink of crumbling down, I can automatically heal it up naturally. After thinking for half a day, this was the only excuse he could come up with. Initially, there was a trace of happiness on the face of Dragon Empress Shenwu. However, she reverted back to that cold and aloof expression of hers as usual. Dragon Empress Shenwu was no fool. She had headed out to prepare some stuff in order to repair Lin Fan's universal elixir. However, based on the situation right now, they were obviously no longer needed. Do you really think that I would believe that? Dragon Empress Shenwu asked in a frosty tone. She was starting to feel as though she had been had. However, she could not understand just what in the world was going on right now. Even the god of the dragon ancestors said that his universal elixir was damaged. But, before she had even started on healing it, this human had awakened all of a sudden. And without any abnormalities to boot. You have to believe me. I'm a human who doesn't know how to lie. Lin Fan added on hurriedly. This was a sin of its own. He had obviously thought up of the plan beforehand. To think that it would all be messed up by that bunch of maids. I, Shenwu, am not someone who's so easily deceived. Instantly, Dragon Empress Shenwu was enraged. Retrieving her dragon's halberd from within the void, she bolted out towards Lin Fan. Holy FCK, striking just because of a single sentence of disagreement. You've got to hear my explanation. I truly have a skill like that. Lin Fan yelped out as he dodged left and right. He then bolted out of the Imperial Palace and floated out within the void. I, Shenwu, hate to be deceived the most. Holy FCK, Lin Fan yelled out. This script had gone off as intended all of a sudden. What should he do? What in the world should he do? Shenwu, this is a misunderstanding. I truly am able to heal up automatically. Do you really take me, Shenwu, as a fool? Take this. God battling 8 desolates. Lin Fan was being chased and whacked down by Shenwu at this moment. He swerved left and right to dodge relentlessly. If this were the old Lin Fan, he would have long returned a single punch over. But right now, no matter what, they had some ties to them. How could he strike back at her just like that? Human, return me my son. At this moment, Dragon God Wan Sheng appeared too. The moment Lin Fan saw this, he was flabbergasted. Mother ** see King Hell. Seemed like he can only release his ultimate move now. No matter whose son Chicky was, their bloodlines should be connected. They should naturally be able to sense it. And he would also have to release the 10th prince. This time around, his purpose to the colossal dragon race here is to identify with kin, not to pick a fight. Come on out, my final trump card. Chapter 817, A Dragon Has Reverse Scales. Chapter 817, A Dragon Has Reverse Scales. The moves of Dragon God Wan Sheng rained out in a frenzy. He possessed an extraordinary momentum, as the sky were filled with images of dragons that rattled out in all directions. It was as though he was bent on killing Lin Fan for sure. He had been hiding outside the Imperial Palace of Dragon Empress Shenwu the entire time. The reason for that was so that Dragon Empress Shenwu could not sneak him out somehow. But things were good now. For some unknown reason, Dragon Empress Shenwu had started fighting with this human. With that, Dragon God Wan Sheng naturally could bear with it no longer. He had to seek revenge for his son. Instantly, a figure appeared before the face of Dragon God Wan Sheng. Father, it's me, stop fighting. Ever since the 10th prince had converted under Lin Fan, he had been living it up in life. With that heaven-revolting ancestor dragon's reincarnation skill, his cultivation state had been skyrocketing. In fact, he was even at the boundaries of touching base with the divine celestial level 10, eternal god state right now. He was just that step away. And this single step wasn't all that far for the 10th prince either. The moment Dragon God Wan Shang, who was bearing an extremely ferocious momentum, caught sight of this figure before him, he retracted his attacks immediately. His tone was startled, and he had a look of disbelief. Son, you're all right. Dragon God Wan Shang was extremely emotional right now. Due to his overexcitement, even that long beard of his was trembling at this moment. That infuriated expression of his turned tender and gentle all of a sudden. The moment he caught wind of the news that his very own child was killed in the hands of this human, he had blown up right away in his heart. Dragon God Wan Shang had 10 sons, and the 10th prince was the youngest of them all. However, for Dragon God Wan Shang, he had only one son right now. As for the other 9 before him, they had brought death upon themselves outside by being cocky. They were either killed off by the ancient race or other powerful beings. Therefore, Dragon God Wan Shang placed a lot of emphasis on this son of his. Each time the 10th prince went out, Dragon God Wan Shang would send out powerful beings to escort him. That was because he was afraid that this son of his might bring death upon himself by insulting others. Father, I am all right. I'm doing fine. This guy here is my big brother. Why must you attack him? The 10th prince had a bewildered face. Even though he had been purified by Lin Fan, under Lin Fan's instructions, the feeling that he was giving off right now was that of the obedient little child of Dragon God Wan Shang. My child. Unable to hold back his emotions, Dragon God Wan Shang rushed up forth and hugged him tightly. Within this period of time, the heart of Dragon God Wan Shang seemed as though it was pierced through by 1,000 swords. Starting with his very first child all the way to his 10th child here. The heart of Dragon God Wan Shang had long broken down into shards. And now that this 10th child of his was still alive, this was naturally the greatest gift that Dragon God Wan Shang could receive right now. Looking at the scene before him, Lin Fan felt relieved. At least he had settled that Dragon God Wan Shang now. The 10th prince turned around and gave Lin Fan a smirk. The meaning was clear, count on me. Lin Fan nodded his head. His meaning was clear too, I'll hand everything to you. My son, your aura. The cultivation state of Dragon God Wan Shang was heaven revolting. Therefore, his wisdom was as high as the heavens as well. A single look was enough for him to perceive the body of the 10th prince. The face of Dragon God Wan Shang was startled right now, evidently in disbelief. He knew that while this son of his had a pretty decent potential, it was one that could only be considered as average within the colossal dragon's race. However, the aura that his child was giving off right now was extremely special, with a harmony between yin and yang. All of a sudden, Dragon God Wan Shang caught sight of a gigantic Tai Chi yin-yang colossal dragon that was coiling up within the body of the 10th prince. That was the reincarnation technique. Not only that, it had been cultivated to an extremely profound state right now. My son, you've cultivated the ancestor dragon's reincarnation? Dragon God Wan Shang asked in an astonished manner, unable to believe this at all. The ancestor dragon's reincarnation was one of the few great secret techniques of the colossal dragon's race. It wasn't something that one could learn as and when they wanted to. They had to have the innate potential for it. And, this innate potential was something that only a bare few could have within the entire colossal dragon's race. N-O-V-E in .c Om. That's right, father. With the help of Big Brother, I have already cultivated the ancestor dragon's reincarnation to level 8. I'm only that single step away from becoming a divine celestial level 10 state being. The 10th prince commented. Dragon God Wan Shang looked at his own child, then looked over at Lin Fan. For a moment or so, he truly did not know what to say anymore. All of a sudden, he was starting to feel that all of this wasn't real. Shen Wu, this matter is truly a misunderstanding. Lin Fan explained hurriedly. Even though this matter was definitely not a misunderstanding, in the face of Shen Wu, no matter even if he had to be whacked to death, Lin Fan would definitely stick by his claim that this was the truth. Shut up. The face of Dragon Empress Shen Wu right now was extremely frosty. She did not believe in Lin Fan's words in the least bit. At this moment, Lin Fan had a huge headache. Why in the world did this Dragon Empress Shen Wu have to be this stubborn? Father, he is my benefactor. The only reason why your child I am able to cultivate the ancestor dragon's reincarnation is all due to my big brother's credit. You mustn't allow the Dragon Empress Shen Wu to strike at Big Brother. The 10th prince added on hurriedly, hoping that Dragon God Wan Shang could settle this issue down. Don't bother with this matter. Let us leave. Dragon God Wan Shang did not say much. He then tugged at the 10th prince and wanted to leave this place. No, I'm not leaving. The 10th prince started acting coquettishly. For Dragon God Wan Shang, the 10th prince was like a piece of his heart. For a moment, he did not know what to do. However, Dragon Empress Shen Wu was enraged at this moment. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. It was as though she could not think through it at all. Does it feel good to lie to me? Dragon Empress Shen Wu blasted out. I swear to the heavens that I'm not lying. I'm truly injured. However, my skill is just slightly more unique. Therefore, even if my universal elixir is slightly damaged, it would be able to heal up automatically. Lin Fan replied. HMPH. And you really think that I'll believe you? Instantly, Dragon Empress Shen Wu bolted out towards Lin Fan once more. That peerlessly ravishing face of hers shone with a look of fury once more. Holy FCK, why the hell is this woman so stubborn? Lin Fan was infuriated at this point. Bloody hell, yours truly had been trying to pacify her through words. Yet, this chick had been so brazen time and again. Intolerable, absolutely intolerable. Bam, Lin Fan did not dodge as he grabbed onto the Dragon Empress Shen Wu with a furious look. Everything I said was real. Why do you just refuse to believe me? To hell I would. All humans are crafty individuals. The Dragon Empress Shen Wu struggled. Let go of me. Chick, you're really way too stubborn. And to think that you would say something such as the entire human race being crafty individuals. Seems like I've got to teach you a lesson here to show you that trust must exist between every single individual. Lin Fan then lifted the Dragon Empress Shen Wu up and held her by the waist with just a single hand. What are you trying to do? Dragon Empress Shen Wu yelped out in shock. She did not expect that something as such would happen. When Dragon God Wan Sheng caught sight of this, he was momentarily startled as well. Just as he was about to move forth to rescue Dragon Empress Shen Wu, he was halted by the 10th prince in an instant. Father, what are you thinking of doing? That's my big brother. Dragon God Wan Sheng was stunned as he stopped whatever he was doing. Dragon God Wan Sheng could not make out what in the world was happening right now. Piok. Just at this moment, a clean, crisp sound rang out. Dragon God Wan Sheng froze up and turned his head in disbelief. It was as though he had just witnessed something absolutely inconceivable. Why you? What do you think I'm doing? I'm trying to teach this stubborn chick here a lesson. Lin Fan had suddenly realized that there was something wrong with the expression on the face of Dragon God Wan Sheng. For a moment, he was starting to realize that there seemed to be some problem of sorts. AA Dragon has reverse scales. If you touch them, you die. B****, I'm going to kill you. All of a sudden, Lin Fan realized that Dragon Empress Shen Wu was resisting crazily out of nowhere. It can't be, right? Lin Fan had not expected that the reverse scale would exist on the bum of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu. Bloody hell, if any mother CKER were to get together with Dragon Empress Shen Wu, wouldn't they get into a fight each time her bum was touched? Chapter 818. Do you know of your wrongdoings? Do you believe me now? Chapter 818. Do you know of your wrongdoings? Do you believe me now? The 10th prince was completely dumbfounded at this moment as well. To think that Lin Fan would slap down on the bum of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu. Wasn't this just asking for an explosion? This was going to turn the tempo into one where things wouldn't end unless one of them died. At this moment, Lin Fan was starting to realize that something was off about the aura of Dragon Empress Shen Wu. In fact, there was even a killing intent that was bursting forth from her body. Let me go. The entire face of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu was filled with an icy expression, as a thick killing intent rumbled forth from her. It was as though she was ready to fight against Lin Fan with her life. At this moment, Lin Fan had a bad feeling about this. He had suddenly realized that the Dragon Empress Shen Wu seemed to have turned into an entirely different person. However, he knew that he mustn't bow down either. If he were to cower, he would definitely lose face. From God knows when, a large number of beings of the colossal dragon's race had already rushed over from the distance, realizing that something was going on here. When they arrived at the scene, they were all stunned. Just who in the world is that? Why is he holding the Dragon Empress Shen Wu from her waist? This guy is just throwing away his life. My goddess, how could she be held from the waist by this guy? I'm going to head up there to rescue my goddess. Are you dumb or what? Can't you see Dragon God Wan Sheng over there? What ******************************************************************************* Use can you be if you go up? Shen Wu, you're way too stubborn. Everything I said was all true. But, since that's the case, I can only have you change this temper of yours then. Piok. Without any hesitation, Lin Fan sent yet another slap over. Other than the fact that the touch of her body felt pretty good, Lin Fan was having a whole load of trouble in his mind. What should he do later on? He had already realized that this was the reverse scale of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu. If he were to let her go, she would definitely not let him off until he was dead. But, if he didn't let her go, what should he do then? It was not as though he could spank her into submission, could he? Such pains, such tortures, such a dilemma. However, that single slap of Lin Fan caused the entire atmosphere to explode forth. Those members of the colossal dragon's race who had gathered over to watch the scene were completely dumbstruck at this moment. To think that he would spank that area of Dragon Empress Shen Wu. That's the reverse scale of Dragon Empress Shen Wu. Does this fella have a death wish or what? Ah, my goddess. And her purity is gone just like that. Oh, how my heart hurts. How it hurts. Who can come forth and save my goddess? That's my goddess. In the eyes of the colossal dragon's race, the Dragon Empress Shen Wu was a goddess-tier woman. She was the perfect combination of both glory and looks. But, to think that a human would do this to her right now. This caused their hearts to shatter entirely. B****, let go of me, I'm going to kill you. Dragon Empress Shen Wu was entirely deranged right now. Her eyes were bloodshot and burning with so much rage that they could almost flare out of her eyes. I'm not lying to you. It's up to you whether to believe it or not. Lin Fan was feeling a little flustered in his heart right now. However, he knew that he had to maintain his composure at this moment. He must definitely not cower. In Lin Fan's opinion, if he were to loosen his grip on her right now, she would definitely come at him relentlessly with all her life. This was the one scene that Lin Fan wanted to see the least. But at this moment, no matter what Lin Fan said, Dragon Empress Shen Wu refused to believe any bit of it at all. Her body was like an earthworm that was squiggling endlessly, trying to break free from his grip. However, it was as though Lin Fan's arm possessed an infinite amount of strength that held the Dragon Empress Shen Wu by her waist with a death grip. And amidst the squirming, Lin Fan felt an unusual sensation. Father, what should we do now? Looking at how something was wrong with the current situation, the 10th prince felt his heart skip a beat as he asked anxiously. I don't know, but this is something that will definitely not blow off this easily. Dragon God Wan Shang replied with a stupefied face. This matter had gone way beyond his expectations. He hadn't expected that this human would treat Dragon Empress Shen Wu as such. Even though he did not know whether that was intentional, he knew that there was no way out of this now that it had come to this. Chomp. At this moment, the long hair of the Dragon Empress Shen Wu were drooping down as she bit right at Lin Fan's waist. The moment Lin Fan felt this bite, his heart clenched for a moment. If not for the fact that his physical body state had been cultivated up, he might have been bitten into two with that single bite. Seemed like this time around, Dragon Empress Shen Wu had truly gone mad. Unless she killed Lin Fan, she would definitely not let this go. Seemed like one should honestly never ever touch the reverse scales of the colossal dragon's race. No matter who it was that touched it, they would completely disregard any kinship or anything after. However, Lin Fan was truly unconvinced. Since he had already touched it no matter what, it wouldn't be his style if he didn't grit his teeth and go through with this to the end. Piok, 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 piok. Without bothering or asking anything, Lin Fan slapped it a few more times repeatedly. All of a sudden, the only sounds left within the world were sounds of saliva being gulped down. The gazes of those members of the colossal dragon's race glared at this scene before them fixedly. They were no longer budging any longer. Each time Lin Fan spanked down, that place bounced a little. It was extremely bouncy. November LBJNN. Even though the touch to his fingers were indeed splendid, Lin Fan knew that now was not the moment to be relishing this pleasure. It was the time to bring Chick Shen Wu up to the right track. How could there not be any trust between individuals in this world? B****. At this moment, Dragon Empress Shen Wu had long lost her mind completely. That bite on Lin Fan's waist had no effect at all. It was as though Lin Fan's body was made out of metal. She couldn't even bite through. In fact, she couldn't even leave a bite mark behind. Do you know of your mistakes now? Lin Fan lectured with a straight face. The motion in his hand did not come to a stop as he spanked down tightly one after another. In fact, there was even some spring to his motions. I'm not wrong. The Dragon Empress Shen Wu did not feel all too good right now. It was as though all her powers had been forcefully sealed up and she was unable to let loose anything right now. Piok, piok. One palm after another, Lin Fan continued with the spankings. Lin Fan knew that there was no way to back down from this by now. Between the both of them, one of them had to step down and admit defeat. However, Lin Fan knew that he wouldn't allow himself to be the one. Because of that, seemed like Chick Shen Wu had to be the one admitting defeat then. But, looking at the state of Chick Shen Wu right now, she looked like she was still infuriated in her heart. There was no way she would admit defeat this easily. Seemed like he could only drag this on then. This time around, Lin Fan had already thought through his trip over to the colossal dragon's race to seek out roots. However, no matter how well thought out one's plans were, they could never ever fight against the plans made by the heavens. To think that the maids of Dragon Empress Shenwu were all a bunch of perverts. Wasn't he just acting like he had fainted over, and that was all? Did they have to take advantage of him like that? If not for the fact that those bunch of chicks there had messed up his tempo, his performance this time around would have been one of the best in his entire life. But, it was a pity that even regretting would not aid this matter anymore right now, because things had already progressed to this point. Time passed by the seconds and minutes, and the crowd of Colossal Dragon's race members who had gathered was getting larger. At the start, there were some members of the Colossal Dragon's race who had wanted to rush up and save this goddess of their hearts. However, when they caught sight of how powerful beings such as Dragon God Wan Sheng and some others were just standing there and watching with their mouths agape as well, they could only bear with it in their hearts. Everyone was wondering right now in their minds just who in the world this fellow was. To think that he could just humiliate their goddess right in the face of the Colossal Dragon's race. And now only that, all the Lord Dragon Gods and the others were just standing by watching idly, without any indication of interfering at all. This was something that didn't make any sense at all. Lin Fan had long forgotten just how many times he had spanked down. It must have been a couple hundred by now. By now, his hands were even starting to feel numb. The Dragon Empress Shenwu, who was yelling furiously earlier on, was completely dazed right now as she said nothing while being clipped between Lin Fan's arm by her waist. Do you know of your wrongdoings now? Do you believe me now? This was a question that Lin Fan had asked nothing less than 100 times by now. Without much strength left, Lin Fan was just spouting it out of his mouth casually at this point. The pleasure of spanking had long been over for his palm. But, he could truly do nothing if this chick Shenwu refused to admit her defeat. I was wrong, I believe you now. At this moment, that enraged expression of the Dragon Empress Shenwu was no longer there. In its place was a face that was about to cry. The moment Lin Fan heard this, he was stunned. Chapter 819, Seeking Kin. Chapter 819, Seeking Kin. This doesn't make sense. Lin Fan was in some slight disbelief right now. He hadn't expected things to turn out as such. All the while, Chick Shenwu had been presenting a, "Your mummy is not going to let this off until she gets her hands on you" expression, but to think that she would admit defeat all of a sudden. This had Lin Fan dumbfounded. Lin Fan stopped the motion of his hands and took a good look. He wanted to ascertain if Chick Shenwu was putting on an act. But no matter how he looked left and right, he couldn't make out a shred of falsehood in it. At this moment, the expression of Chick Shenwu was dazed. In fact, there were even 2 streams of tears flowing down both sides of her cheeks. It was as though those were tears of a broken heart after being abused by someone. It can't be that I'm way too awesome and have managed to spank the Dragon Empress Shenwu into submission, right? Lin Fan thought in his heart silently. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this was a possibility. Do you truly believe me now? Lin Fan asked once more, still not truly convinced just yet. I do. Dragon Empress Shenwu nodded her head fervently, without a single shred of hesitation. Reverse scales and whatnot, none of those existed at this very moment. Dragon Empress Shenwu had realized that Lin Fan was simply way too twisted. Even if her reverse scale was there, it didn't mean Jack's tea. Under the abuse of this inhumane thing, Dragon Empress Shenwu had admitted defeat completely. She no longer bore any thoughts of wanting to fight back against the other party. Impossible. When Dragon God Wan Sheng saw this, he was taken aback, evidently confounded. The end result for this human after touching the reverse scale of the Dragon Empress Shenwu was definitely to endure an eternal fury of hers for his entire life. But, to think that Dragon Empress Shenwu would actually admit defeat and take the initiative to apologize to this human. This single scene had everyone watching with their mouths agape. Even though the 10th prince had been subdued by Lin Fan, he retained a sense of self-consciousness. At this moment, he could not help but be impressed with Lin Fan's methods as well. To think that he could even subdue the Dragon Empress Shenwu, whose reverse scale he had touched. Yes, it's all good as long as you believe. Look at you here now. It was really difficult for me as well. Wouldn't it have all been fine had you done this from the start? This is the basic form of trust that individuals should have between them. This world is so big. There are all sorts of wonders within it. Let's not even talk about repairing one's universal elixir, one can practically revive even after dying. Furthermore, look at me. Do I look like the type of person who would deceive others? So, you must absolutely believe in me in the future. You must never ever look at me with any doubts, understood? Looking at how well behaved the Dragon Empress Shenwu was, Lin Fan could not help but heave out a sigh of relief as he elaborated at length. Understood. As though the Dragon Empress Shenwu had been subdued down by violence, it didn't matter what Lin Fan said, she would just nod her head without even thinking twice. All the surrounding members of the colossal dragon race no longer knew what to say about this scene right now. They did not know where in the world this human had popped out from. To think that he could even subdue the Dragon Empress Shenwu. These methods could definitely shock the entire heaven and earth. At the same time, they were immensely curious in their hearts. While they did not know what he did to subdue the Dragon Empress Shenwu, they hoped that they could learn it. If they did, wouldn't they be able to take liberties with the other chicks of the colossal dragon race for free? Instantly, countless eyes that sparkled with hope were cast at Lin Fan. Sensing the attention of all these gazes, Lin Fan felt his heart clench. He had a feeling that he was an object of voyeurism for these members of the colossal dragon race. Lin Fan looked at the Dragon Empress Shenwu, then took a step forward as he wanted to open up his mouth and speak. However, all of a sudden, Dragon Empress Shenwu shivered uncontrollably and stepped back hastily, with fear shining through her eyes. Lin Fan was exasperated right now. It couldn't be that she was afraid of him now, right? No matter what, Dragon Empress Shenwu was the female pride of the colossal dragon race. Didn't he just spank her bum for a good few hundred times? Did she have to fear him like this? Seemed like he would have to communicate this through with her properly if there was the chance. Boom. At this very moment, the void above trembled as a long tear appeared between the world. An extremely formidable aura seeped out from the tear. A figure walked out briskly. This figure was as huge as the heaven and earth itself, exuding an extremely imposing and authoritative aura. A pair of golden dragon eyes were shining with a godly glow. All right now, this is the sacred ground of the colossal dragon race. Isn't it about time for you to leave, human? This boundless voice boomed out from within the void. When all the members of the colossal dragon race caught sight of this figure, all of them prostrated on the ground immediately. God of the dragon ancestors. Those members of the colossal dragon race who were deep in discussion moments earlier turned extremely stern and serious the second they caught sight of this figure. All of their faces were filled with a look of reverence. God of the dragon ancestors. Lin Fan raised his head over. This was the first time he was catching sight of the big boss of the colossal dragon race. This aura, in Lin Fan's opinion, was indeed extremely formidable. To think that this affair would even rattle the god of the dragon ancestors. This was something thoroughly unexpected. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. I'm here to seek out relatives. If I don't find who I'm looking for, I'm not leaving this place. Lin Fan replied loudly. Even if it were in the face of the god of the dragon ancestor, Lin Fan did not feel any fear at all. After all, his purpose for the trip this time around wasn't to cause a fight with anyone. He was truly here to seek out roots. As for this issue with the Dragon Empress Shenwu, it was just a complete accident. Seeking relatives. You're of the human race while we are of the colossal dragon race. What relatives do you speak of? The god of the dragon ancestor asked. I'm not seeking out kin for myself. I'm helping my little bro to seek out his relatives. Lin Fan replied. Oh, so, who are you looking for? The god of the dragon ancestor asked. I have no idea, we'll decide after we take a look. How in the world would Lin Fan know who Chicky's daddy was? He could only try it using the connections of their bloodlines. It was evident that Chicky was a mixed breed. But, if Chicky's daddy weren't here, then this would be one hell of an embarrassment. As for Chicky's bloodline, it was pretty obvious that it was pretty high class. Not only that, his personal physical body type was pretty special. As such, the daddy of Chicky must be no ordinary colossal dragon even within the colossal dragon race. Chicky, come on out. Lin Fan spread out his fingers and released Chicky out from his paradise instantly. Kukkaku. At this moment, the stance in which Chicky came forth from his paradise was extremely suave. With both legs stepping forth, that chicken head of his was raised high. His eyes were shining with an unparalleled gleam. Ha ha ha, what the FCK is that sh*t? How could that be a descendant of our colossal dragon race? I bet that must belong to those bunch of little birds of the phoenix race. Are you tired of living? How dare you spout out such words now? Oh, right, I nearly forgot. The members of the colossal dragon race broke out into heated discussions once more. They were practically rolling on their bellies in laughter over the appearance of Chicky. They were of the colossal dragon race. And what in the world was this thing that looked like a chicken? Kukkaku. Chicky wasn't bothered with the conversation going on as he crowed out loudly. Chicky tossed his head before exchanging glances with Lin Fan. Lin Fan nodded his head in acknowledgement silently. Go forth and start looking for your daddy. Chicky followed the sensation of the bloodline within his body and started sweeping his gaze at these members of the colossal dragon race one by one. And just at this moment, Chicky realized that there was a pair of eyes that had been gazing at him intently. He swung his head over immediately. Instantly, he could feel a deep connection rising from the unknowns. All of a sudden, Chicky could feel the blood within his body starting to rumble. Lin Fan had been following Chicky's line of sight as well. But at this moment, all he saw was Chicky exchanging glances with that god of the dragon ancestors. At this moment, Lin Fan was stunned. It couldn't be that Chicky had some sort of relationship with this god of the dragon ancestors, right? Chapter 820. Please carry on with your act. Chapter 820. Please carry on with your act. All of a sudden, the entire world fell silent. Chicky tilted his head and looked at the god of the dragon ancestor. At the same time, there was a stark change in that indifferent expression of the god of the dragon ancestor. Seeing this scene, Lin Fan felt a great deal of confidence in his heart that Chicky must definitely be the descendant of this god of the dragon ancestor. Kuk-kuku, Chicky crowed out softly before turning his body sideways and looking at Lin Fan with a strange expression. His meaning was clear, this god of the dragon ancestor was his daddy. Lin Fan's heart was thumping so hard it was about to pop out right now. If this were truly the case, wouldn't he have hit a bloody gold mine? He then hurriedly squinted, twitched, and winked with his eye furiously. Since this is determined, hurry up and go hug this guy's legs tightly. Chicky nodded his head silently. In fact, he even gave Lin Fan a special look. Old bro, don't worry. When Chicky takes the show personally, everything is going to be settled for sure. Seeing this look from Chicky, Lin Fan was filled with confidence. Even though Chicky might not be too much altogether, he had been specially trained by Lin Fan. Those leg-hugging skills were definitely top-notch. November LBJNN. All of a sudden, the tension in the atmosphere changed. Chicky cried out loudly, and his disposition had changed entirely all of a sudden as well. Even though that pair of chicken eyes of his couldn't be considered as large, they underwent an extremely hard change within this short period of time. Agitation, disbelief, shock, exhilaration, see-kuk-ku. Looking at this god of the dragon ancestor before him, Chicky suddenly spread out his wings as though he had just seen something absolutely outrageous. Those little feet of his darted over furiously and pounced toward the god of the dragon ancestor. Instantly, Chicky was hugging the legs of the god of the dragon ancestor tightly. That expression as he hugged onto the legs of the god of the dragon ancestor was as though he was filled with nostalgia right now. Cuckoo. Even though Chicky could not speak just yet, the meaning of that cry was clear. Daddy why The god of the dragon ancestor was completely stupefied right now. Those stern eyes of his glared at Chicky intently as though he was trying to verify something. The god of the dragon ancestor could confirm that the bloodline of this living being before him was extremely similar to his. At this moment, Lin Fan took a step forth and pointed his finger slightly, trembling with a face of astonishment. See, could you be the father of Chicky? At that moment, all members of the colossal dragon race were completely petrified. This was especially the case for the older generation of the colossal dragon race right now. Their hearts were surging with torrential waves as they were filled with absolute disbelief. They knew that the god of the dragon ancestor once had a relationship with the phoenix race. But that was something that had happened a long time ago now. And right now when they looked at Chicky, they could also feel that there was the bloodline of the colossal dragon race cruising through his body. Also, there was a part of this bloodline that belonged to the phoenix race as well. However, there was one thing they could not understand. How could the life that resulted as a fusion of the god of the dragon ancestor and the phoenix race's copulation be something like this? At this moment, Lin Fan looked at the current situation and felt a strange feeling bubbling. The expression of the god of the dragon ancestor seemed to have calmed down. If Chicky was truly the descendant of the god of the dragon ancestor, he should naturally be extremely agitated at their reunion now. But why did he not have any reaction at all? There couldn't have been some mistake, right? And the acting of Chicky right now was absolutely to the point. It was the complete behavior someone should display after being a poor orphan child who had been abandoned out into the world for countless of years, and then finally found his kin. Kuk-ku. At this moment, Chicky was a little indignant now. He had been hugging this guy's legs for so damned long now. Yet, this fellow wasn't giving any reaction at all. To Chicky, this made no sense at all. He then wailed out loudly. This time around, the wail was even more tragic. It was as though he was a child without a home right now. He was as pitiful as he could get at this very moment. Screech. All of a sudden, the sky was filled with a patch of fiery red. From within those flames, a phoenix swooped down and appeared before the god of the dragon ancestor instantly. When Lin Fan caught sight of this phoenix, his heart tightened. Wasn't this the phoenix he had witnessed back in Xuanlong world? At this moment, this phoenix took on a human form. She was draped in a set of red phoenix robes. Those lively eyes of hers were filled with an endearing look the moment she caught sight of Chicky. Elegant, poised, authoritative, etc. Her disposition changed all of a sudden into that of a tender motherly love. Instantly, Chicky was hugged in the embrace of the woman. Her voice was gentle and was filled with a boundless amount of longing, "My son." Chicky, who had been coordinating his performance with Lin Fan perfectly from the start, was now stunned as well. He let go of the legs of the god of the dragon ancestor involuntarily, then looked at this woman with a dumbfounded look. Even after she had picked him up into her embrace, he had still yet to snap out of his stupor. "My son." It was just 2 words, yet it was more than enough to have Chicky cry out thoroughly. Spreading his wings, he hid himself within her embrace and bawled out loudly. "Don't cry now, don't cry. It's your mother's fault here. I'm the reason why you had to endure so much hardship outside." Tears were gushing down the eyes of this woman. It was as though she had something extremely heartbreaking brought up in her mind. The members of the colossal dragon race in the surroundings exchanged glances with one another. They knew that something big was going to happen soon. The god of the dragon ancestor looked at the situation around him and his brows furrowed. "Let us head back first before discussing about this. We'll talk later." The woman who was hugging Chicky felt her heart being overwhelmed with emotions. She then glared over with her beautiful eyes. "What do we have to talk about when we head back? We'll talk about it right here and now." Zifeng, the heart of the god of the dragon ancestor, skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling about this. "Huang Wusheng, what were you doing just now? Why didn't you have any expression at all when your son hugged you? Are you looking down on him?" Zifeng scolded him harshly. "Zifeng, no, don't say anything. What did you say 10,000 years ago? And what are you going to say now? Since you don't wish to see him right now, then let me go, and I'll live a life with my son together." Zifeng's expression was displeased. 10,000 years ago, it was precisely because she was with this guy that she suffered the oppression of the colossal dragon race. Later on, when Huang Wusheng became the god of the dragon ancestor and had an unparalleled position in the race, that was when he wanted to go fetch her back. But as far as Zifeng went, what in the world did he take both the mother and child for? People they could chase away and bring back as and how they wished. "I'll just ask you one simple question. Do you acknowledge him?" Zifeng asked. The god of the dragon ancestor looked at Chicky, then at his surrounding fellow race. He then nodded his head eventually. "Acknowledge. I acknowledge. Shall we discuss this slowly after we head back?" At this moment, the god of the dragon ancestor felt like he was about to implode. The first time he saw Chicky, he already knew that this was his son. But, his appearance was something that the god of the dragon ancestor found hard to come to terms with for a moment or so. If not for the relationship between their bloodline, he would not dare to believe that a living being which looked like this could possibly be his son. At this moment, Lin Fan stood at a corner and watched silently. He discovered that this thing was happening a little too quickly. To think that Chicky's mother would arrive here. And this god of the dragon ancestor seemed a little like a henpecked man. However, seeing the melodramatic events that transpired between Chicky's parents, Lin Fan did not want to press any further. Based on what he had heard earlier, he had a rough idea of what was going on. Back in the past, this god of the dragon ancestor had yet to attain the position he was in right now. As such, his life wasn't under his control. But because Zifeng was unable to accept something like that, she headed down to the lower world from this upper world. A melodrama as such was filled with boundless entertainment for Lin Fan. However, there was only a single thought on his mind right now, and that was, "Chicky, please carry on with your act.